Chapter 396. Southern Border, 10,000 Great Mountains. The icy cold wind gradually made people feel the chill, the gloomy black clouds in the sky, and that gradually becoming more and more obvious deep cave, all indicated that the legendary evil demon's cave was gradually nearing. Lu Sweki and the rest stood several zhongs away from the subdued devil ancient cave, gazing towards that cave. Far away, a stone statue with its back facing them stood alone at the entrance of the subdued devil ancient cave. Other than that, there was nothing else. Li Sun looked at that cave, seemed to be inexplicably nervous, quietly said, "It's here." The chilly wind whistled, and it seemed to have suddenly raised the pitch of the sound, causing people to feel a chill down their spines. Lu Sweki, Zheng Shushu, Li Sun, and the rest were highly skilled, naturally did not fear the Yin energy contained in the Yin wind, and the dozens of Funxiang Valley disciples who followed them were all highly skilled, did not look too uncomfortable. Zheng Shushu turned back, said, "The evil energy here is indeed extremely heavy, just that we have observed for a long time, but there's not a single evil beast. This is a little strange." Lu Sweki nodded her head, but her cold expression did not change, indifferently said, "Since we are here, let's go over. If there are any evil beasts, we can deal with them early." After speaking, without waiting for Li Sun and the rest to reply, she walked straight ahead. Li Sun and Zheng Shushu looked at each other. Zheng Shushu laughed dryly, shrugged his shoulders, and followed. Li Sun looked at that graceful back figure from behind, suddenly sighed to himself. To him, that figure had appeared in his dreams countless times, but when they really had the chance to be together, it seemed to be even further apart. He was silent for a moment, waved his hand, beckoned his junior brothers behind him, and followed. Far away, near that mysterious stone statue at the entrance of the subdued devil ancient cave, a black figure suddenly flashed past, flashed into the cave. It was Haim Mu's figure. Almost at the same time as Haim Mu's figure flashed to the cave entrance, a low roar was heard from deep within the cave. It was that fierce black tiger's voice, following which the illusionary mist in the air started to condense. The fierce spirit was about to appear again. At this moment, Haim Mu, who was hidden behind the black clothes, suddenly said, "Big brother, don't come out first. Listen to me." The ferocious spirit black tiger coldly laughed, but the white fog was still condensing. Evidently, it did not hear Haim Mu's words and said, "Beast, do you still dare to come back?" Haim Mu stood in the shadows at the corner of the cave, said, "After you appeared, it was inevitable that you would startle these people who came over. Today, there's an endless stream of people coming to this subdued devil cave. Don't tell me you still don't know the reason." The illusory white smoke suddenly paused in midair. It did not continue to increase, but it did not have the intention of dispersing either. After a moment, Black Tiger's voice said coldly, "What do you mean?" Blackwood said coldly, "They naturally came here to deal with the person in this cave. No matter what. Isn't this what you want? What's more, you've already let people in earlier, so why not let more people in now? What's wrong with that?" Outside the cave, the sound of footsteps could be heard from afar. The group of people was approaching this ancient and deep cave. The white fog suddenly dispersed. In the strong wind blowing out from the depths of the cave, it instantly dispersed into nothingness. And almost at the same time, Haim Mu's black figure also disappeared into the darkness. Lu Sweki, Zheng Shushu, and Li Sun's figures, the next moment, appeared before the subdued devil cave entrance. Zheng Shushu cautiously peered into the deep darkness of the cave. His brows frowned. Evidently, he was not at ease with such a strange place with such an evil aura. And Li Sun, who was standing beside him, was similar to him, also frowned slightly. But in his expression, his eyes revealed some indistinct surprise and astonishment. He slowly paced back and forth near the cave entrance, but it was all very calm. Other than the bone-chilling wind, there was no other sound. This seemed to make Li Sun puzzled. He stared at the subdued devil cave in silence, as if deep in thought. Different from the two men, after arriving outside the cave, Lu Sweki very quickly turned her attention from the deep darkness of the subdued devil ancient cave to the mysterious and lonely female stone statue. She slowly walked to the front of the stone statue, gazed at it. The female statue had experienced countless years of wind, frost, rain, and snow. Traces of erosion could be seen from top to bottom. But as if she had some kind of reaction, Lusweki could clearly see that the female statue's expression was still that lifelike. Her face was slightly sorrowful, carrying a tinge of sadness. In her eyes, there seemed to be perplexity, silently gazing into the depths of this mysterious cave, as if anticipating something, as if pouring out her heart to something. Just that in these thousands of years, who had ever heard her heart's words? Lu Jr. sister, Lu Jr. sister. Suddenly, a few surprised cries were heard from the side. Lusweki's body shook, involuntarily took a step back, woke up from her baffling contemplation, looked to the side. Zhang Shushu's face was a little surprised, and also a little worried, said, Lu Jr. sister, I have called you a few times. Why do you seem not to hear me? Lusweki's face turned slightly pale, slowly clenched the hands hanging at her waist, but discovered that since when her palms were covered in cold sweat. She took a deep breath, calmed herself down, lightly said, Nothing. Did you all discover anything? Zhang Shushu shook his head and said, No, besides the chilly wind that is slightly strange, there isn't even a trace of a demon beast. As he spoke, he turned to Li Sun and said, Senior brother Li, what did you find? Li Sun was silent for a moment, also shook his head, said, Nothing, but this place is really strange. Zhang Shushu curiously said, Strange? What's strange? Li Sun was surprised, quickly gave a dry laugh, said, Nothing. I'm just seeing that this is the lair of the evil beasts. Why are there no evil beasts here? So I find it strange. Zhang Shushu smiled, said, That's true. I also find it strange. What do you think, Lu Jr. sister? Lusweki did not answer immediately. Her bright, clear eyes slowly glimmered, again glanced at Li Sun. Li Sun, for some reason, suddenly coughed, turned to look at the other Funxiang Valley disciples, said, The few of you come over, don't go too far. Lusweki was silent for a moment, and then turned to look at that female statue, said, No matter what, we are already here. There is no reason to give up halfway. Let's go in. Zhang Shushu nodded, said, That's right. After speaking, he turned to Li Sun and said, Li Senior brother, what do you think? Li Sun was still frowning, as if right now he had some difficult thoughts hanging in his mind, but after a moment he still said, Lu Jr. sister is right. Let's go in. Zhang Shushu turned, said, Since it is so, let's go in. But this place is, after all, unusual. It is better for us to be careful. How about this? I will lead the way. Lu Jr. sister, you stay in the middle to provide support. Li Senior brother, you stay at the back. The rest of the Funxiang Valley Senior brothers walk in the middle. What do you think? Li Sun nodded, was about to agree. Suddenly, Lusweki faintly said, That is not appropriate. Better change. Zhang Shushu and Li Sun were surprised. Zhang Shushu said, Lu Jr. sister, then what do you mean? Lusweki pondered for a moment, said, I will walk in front. Zhang Senior brother at the back. The rest, and Li Senior brother in the middle. Li Senior brother and the rest are all Funxiang Valley disciples. In case something happens, at least there will be someone to command and speak. Li Sun's expression changed slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but Zhang Shushu already smiled and said, Ah, you're right. Why didn't I think of this? Junior sister Lu is right. Then it's settled. Li Sun frowned, but in the end still kept his mouth shut, did not speak, considered his acquiescence. Lusweki looked at him, turned her head, and spoke to Zhang Shushu. Zhang Senior brother, you walk at the back. Your vision is better. It is better to look at the overall situation, strategize. Zhang Shushu smiled, suddenly at an angle where Li Sun and the rest of the Funxiang Valley disciples could not see. With his back facing them, he winked at Lusweki and then smiled and said, Lu Jr. sister, don't worry. With me at the back. Don't be afraid of any trouble. Ha. Lusweki looked deeply at Zhang Shushu. Suddenly a faint smile appeared on her lips, but then it disappeared. Even so, this moment of elegance had already made the hearts of the Funxiang Valley disciples who were secretly peeking at her from afar. Someone could not help but sigh. Li Sun snorted, his face cold. Immediately the strange sounds disappeared without a trace. Lu Sueki's face again turned cold, looked around, said, "We are going in." After speaking, she ignored the rest and walked ahead. Zhang Shushu turned and smiled at Li Sun. "Li Senior Brother, let's go too." Li Sun nodded, beckoned to the rest of the Funxiang Valley disciples, and followed. After Li Sun and the rest followed Lu Sueki into that deep darkness, Zhang Shushu was still unhurried, surveyed the surrounding scenery for a moment, as if thinking about something. After a while, he then smiled mysteriously, slowly walked into this ancient cave. Deep footsteps reverberated out from the darkness. The entrance of the subdued, devil ancient cave once again fell into silence. As the footsteps grew softer and softer, they grew further and further away. When they finally disappeared, a silhouette suddenly flashed in the darkness. He Mu's silhouette slowly walked out from the darkness. He slowly walked up to the female statue and silently looked at it. Behind him, the illusory white mist slowly floated up, condensed. The huge figure of the fierce black tiger also appeared again, but right now he did not seem to immediately hurl malicious words at He Mu. Instead turned back to the depths of the cave and stared for a long time. Suddenly sneered, said, "These Central Plains people have never stopped scheming against each other. Even here, they are still fighting incessantly." Chapter 397. He Mu turned around and said indifferently, "The human heart has always been like this. Not to mention them, even you and I, and even the goddess from all those years ago, weren't they the same?" "What?" The black tiger's enormous body suddenly turned around, and because its speed was too fast, it emitted a muffled sound that was like a wild beast's low roar in midair. When one looked at its face again, it was already filled with rage and was extremely savage. It roared, "What did you say? You actually dare to insult the goddess, and it's even in front of the goddess's statue?" In front of this extremely terrifying, ferocious spirit, He Mu's body seemed extremely tiny. However, for some unknown reason, even though his face could not be seen clearly, one could hear from his calm tone that he did not have the slightest bit of fear. Instead, there seemed to be a deep tiredness in his voice. "Big brother, if the goddess didn't scheme back then, after so many years, what do you think was able to seal that undying monster in this ancient cave?" The black tiger was obviously stunned, but it obviously didn't want to admit this and roared, "What nonsense are you talking about? That was all the goddess, enough." Suddenly, He Mu acted out of character and actually shouted out, interrupting the ferocious spirit black tiger's words. "Don't keep mentioning Her Majesty and Her Majesty. My reverence towards Her Majesty isn't any less than yours." The black tiger's enormous body stiffened, and a trace of astonishment involuntarily appeared on its face. After a long while, it didn't get angry, and the expression on its face instead calmed down. Looking down at this relative of its from its previous life, it suddenly smiled, and then said indifferently, "What's wrong with you? You've never spoken like this to me in the past." He Mu laughed coldly, as if in self-ridicule, then slowly turned his gaze back to the exquisite statue of the witch goddess, and said slowly, "Yes, I would absolutely not speak like this in the past, but why have I become like this now? I don't even know, so who can tell me?" The black tiger said coldly, "That's your own business. I'm not interested and don't want to know. You just have to tell me one thing." He Mu stared blankly at the exquisite statue and said, "What?" The ferocious black tiger said, "Back then, it was you who betrayed the teachings left behind by Her Majesty. You were treacherous. You secretly helped that evildoer retrieve the 5 sacred weapons of the southern border's 5 tribes and resurrected him. But today, why did you ask me to let him into the cave with the intention of harming him?" He Mu's gaze never left the exquisite stone statue. After a long while, his voice was low and filled with pain. He said, "Her Highness sealed the beast deity. It was wrong. We followed Her Highness, asking for the art of immortality. So we created such a monster. It was also wrong. I thought that the beast deity did not deserve this. But I didn't expect him to vent his anger on the people of the world, causing this catastrophe. I was also wrong." Laughing bitterly, he suddenly turned around and spread his arms. His voice was mournful as he shouted towards the sky. Wrong. 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 So we were all wrong. That shout reverberated far away. The mountains responded, just that heaven and earth were indifferent, as if nothing had changed, coldly watching this mortal world. The ferocious spirit Black Tiger's huge body stood at the side. Looking at Hey Moo's figure that was suddenly in extreme pain, it also fell silent. It did not say a single word and only stood silently behind him. In its eyes, a complicated expression flickered faintly. However, there was not the slightest hint of tears. Whether it was him or Hey Moo, in this desolate world for thousands of years, both had long lost the right to cry. Lu Sweki, who was walking in the subdued devil ancient cave, suddenly sensed something, stopped, and turned back to look at the path she came from. The path behind her was pitch black and silent. Other than silence, there was no other sound. Just that sudden palpitation reverberated in her heart, unable to calm down for a long time. Li Sun, who was not far behind her, quietly said, Luke Jr.'s sister, what is it? Did you discover something? In the darkness, Lu Sweki slowly turned around and looked forward. Over there, it was also pitch-black darkness. She, in the darkness, was silent for a moment, then quietly said, Nothing, let's continue. In the darkness, she breathed deeply, pulled herself together, walked forward boldly. The darkness quietly dispersed in front of her, because from her hand, the Tianya celestial sword gradually lit up. The gentle light blue light gently enveloped her, looking like a dream. Behind her, not knowing how many people instantly held their breaths. Just that beautiful figure resolutely walked ahead in the darkness. Although she looked a little lonely, but there was not the slightest hesitation. This stretch of road, such a life, how should she walk through it? She did not turn back. Deep inside the subdued devil ancient cave, the flame quietly burned in that ancient brazier. Just that if one looked carefully, one would discover that under the fire, in the brazier, there was no firewood or lamp oil or anything combustible. This incessantly burning flame seemed to be a rootless fire. The flame flickered in the air. The flame tongue swayed, illuminating the beast deity's face and also the figure of that gradually approaching man. Ghostly walked to the other end of the fire. His face in the light slowly appeared. At the same time, he saw that familiar face. The beast deity, who was still sitting on the ground leaning against that little stone platform, smiled, assessed Ghostly from head to toe, said, I knew someone would come sooner or later, but I did not expect you to be the first to arrive here. He paused, smiled, and said, looking at your expression when you saw me just now, you did not seem surprised. Was it that before we met, you already knew my identity? Ghostly slowly shook his head. Facing this young and gentle-looking man, it was really difficult to associate him with the demon beast who brought calamity to the entire world, but this was the truth. I guessed it later. He indifferently replied. The beast deity looked at him, gently said, Oh, I'm very interested. How did you guess it? From the rumors about my appearance, or my clothes, or my various actions? You guessed my identity? None of them. Ghostly said. The beast deity seemed interested, said, Oh, then what is it? Ghostly glanced at his side, said, It's him. The beast deity slowly nodded, said, Not bad. This is the best method. It can't be wrong. Beside him, the ferocious beast Tao Tai growled. The beast deity stretched out his hand, looking from afar. Ghostly could even see that the hand was strangely pale, as if it was not a human hand. That withered hand was like the hand he saw in the 7 Mile Cave when he saw the great shaman. Just that, after that seemingly powerless hand gently patted a few times, as if comforted, the Tao Tai calmed down and slowly lay on the ground. At the same time, Xiao Hui, who had been staying on Ghost Li's shoulder, slowly slid down, rubbed its head on the ground, and looked at Ghost Li and the beast deity, as if it did not feel the intense enmity between the two of them as it had expected. It thought for a while, and then slowly approached the Tao Tai. The Tao Tai clearly also noticed it, turned its head, watched the approaching gray three-eyed monkey. Very quickly, Xiao Hui approached Tao Tai's side, It grinned and spread out both of its hands. The tail behind it even curled up and swayed once. Following that, it slowly stretched out its hand and touched Tao Tai's head. Ghost Li and the beast deity's gazes were momentarily attracted by Xiao Hui, just that both of them did not speak, only watched quietly. Watching Xiao Hui's movements, Ghost Li suddenly felt a jolt. Not so long ago, many years ago, when he was still that ordinary Zhang Xiao fan on Big Bamboo Valley, Xiao Hui also tried to get close to Tian Bai's big yellow dog like this. The Tao Tai slowly straightened its body but did not stand up immediately to it. Seemed to be perplexed. It turned its head and looked at its master beast deity. Just that the beast deity seemed to be indifferent, did not show any displeasure. And then it turned its head again. Xiao Hui's hand was about to reach its head. From the Tao Tai's nose and mouth, suddenly a low snort. As if it was trying to show off, Xiao Hui was startled, withdrew its arm, and then discovered that the Tao Tai did not make any move to attack, only looking at itself with vigilance. Xiao Hui laughed, bounced twice on the ground, and suddenly leapt forward fiercely, leapt to the side of Tao Tai's body. The Tao Tai was obviously startled. Its body shrank back, but Xiao Hui had already slowly touched its head. To it, the Tao Tai's hideous, ferocious head instead seemed to be a very familiar place. The Tao Tai's bloody mouth made a low grunt, as if grumbling, but after a moment, it slowly again lazily laid down on the ground, pillowed its head on its arm, looked drowsy, and Xiao Hui also leaned on its body, from time to time making light laughter, slowly stroking the Tao Tai's head. Between the two spiritual beasts, there seemed to be no barrier. Ghost Li and the beast deity's gaze slowly withdrew from them. For a moment, both were silent. After an unknown period of time, the beast deity suddenly smiled and said, "Actually, they are instead happier than me, isn't it?" Ghost Li did not speak. Chapter 398. All right. The beast deity smiled faintly, turned around. The weariness on his face deepened. "Why are you here? Is it to kill me?" Ghost Li shook his head. The beast deity was slightly taken aback, then laughed and said, "I didn't expect there to be someone who doesn't want to kill me. I didn't expect that. These few months, in your human words, I have tormented the world, brought calamity to the common people. I'm a person who deserves to die. Why don't you want to kill me?" Ghost Li was silent, looked at the beast deity. The beast deity also looked at him. Between the two men, that ball of fire was quietly burning, at the same time reflected in their eyes. "Should I want to kill you? Shouldn't you?" There was a long, long silence. Maybe Ghost Li's face suddenly revealed a complicated expression, some reminiscence, some pain, and also some indistinct bewilderment. Facing this world's most ferocious evildoer, he seemed to be able to completely let go of his heart, completely not that indifferent and autistic self in front of others. If it was 10 years ago, I would definitely wholeheartedly eliminate the evil for the common people, even though I know my strength is not enough, but ultimately I cannot retreat even half a step. But now, the beast deity stared at him, asked, but the confusion on Ghost Li's face deepened. He slowly said, "I just suddenly feel the common people in the world. What does it have to do with me? My lifelong wish was to live a normal life. I want to learn Taoism. I don't want to cultivate. I don't even want to be immortal." The expression on the beast deity's face also suddenly changed. His eyes changed from a faint sneer to a solemn, even with some confusion similar to Ghost Li's, as if something touched something deep in his heart. He suddenly said, "Then what exactly do you want?" Ghost Li smiled indifferently, slowly looked up at the sky, but there was only the deep darkness of this ancient cave, without a trace of light. He said, "I don't know, sometimes I also thought maybe I could go back to 10 years ago, my days on Big Bamboo Peak. Or perhaps my dream is to simply return to my childhood, when I didn't know anything." But he laughed bitterly in a low voice and said, "The right and wrong, the gratitude and resentment in between, how can I let go of it?" The beast deity was silent for a moment. "Do you regret it?" Ghost Li did not reply immediately. After a while, he looked at the beast deity again, looked at the pair of eyes behind the flames, and shook his head. The beast deity laughed coldly and said, "Based on what you said, Half of your life has been filled with frustrations and sorrow, but now that I am asking you, you do not regret it. What do you say? Ghostly said, half my life is full of frustrations, but most of it is not up to me. I wanted to live an ordinary life, but I got involved in the battle between Buddhism and Taoism. I wanted to cultivate in peace, but I became a demon. I wanted to treat people with sincerity, but I didn't expect to plant the wrong kind of love. When I understand who I am with sincerity, a desolate expression slowly appeared on his face. In the end, he did not continue speaking. After a long while, he said in a low voice, "Regret? How can I regret it? Even if I regret it, what's the use?" The beast deity silently looked at the man standing there. 10 years did not seem to have left many marks on his face. Just that his figure standing there looked so tired. The beast deity could not help but start to imagine that youth 10 years ago, what kind of life did he lead? Between the two men, there was silence, as if they had unknowingly fallen into reminiscence of the past. Everyone's life, past events, how many of them are worth recalling? 10 years? 100 years? 1,000 years? Or will it eventually be slowly worn away by time, quietly passing away? The beast deity thought silently. The weariness on his face deepened. His eyes slowly shifted to the direction of that ancient cave entrance. Separated by the endless darkness in a faraway place, there was still a figure standing there alone. This kind of life, what kind of life was it? He suddenly asked ghostly, "Tell me, what is the purpose of living? What is the purpose of living?" Ghostly repeated in a low voice. After a long while, he raised his head and said, "I don't know. It's just that in this life, it seems like I've been living for others." The beast deity was taken aback. He muttered to himself, "Living for others? Then what about me? Who am I living for?" Ghostly was slightly surprised. He clearly did not expect the beast deity to say such words. Then he frowned, clearly recalling his own words just now. He felt a little surprised. How could he say such things? After composing himself, Ghostly's face regained its calmness, as if that flash of weakness just now had disappeared, as if it had never existed in him. He looked deeply at the beast deity and said, "I came here today, not to kill you." The beast deity still seemed a little absent-minded. As if thinking about something, he faintly replied, "Oh, then why did you come here?" Ghostly pointed to the Tao-Tai lying on the ground beside him and said, "I came for it." The beast deity frowned. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, and the Tao-Tai on the ground immediately reacted, instantly widened its bell-like huge eyes, opened its bloody mouth, roared at Ghostly, and slowly stood up murderous. And the three-eyed monkey Xiao Hui seemed a little puzzled, slowly left the Tao-Tai's side, ran back to Ghostly's feet, raised its head and looked at Ghostly, as if it did not understand its master's words, but after a moment, it still climbed up Ghostly's shoulder, just that its three eyes kept glancing at the Tao-Tai from time to time. The beast deity snorted and said, "That's strange. You came here not to kill me, but for this Tao-Tai? What do you want it for?" Ghostly faintly said, "It's not me who wants it. It's someone else who wants it. And for that person, as long as it's not too much, I will help him." The beast deity looked at him for a moment, suddenly laughed, and said, "You owe someone a favor, isn't it?" Ghostly was silent for a moment, and said, "I indeed owe someone a favor, a lot, so much that I will not be able to repay it in my lifetime. But this has nothing to do with you." He looked up, his expression solemn, and slowly stepped forward. Watching his figure slowly approaching, the beast deity's pupils seemed to contract slightly. The flames in the brazier reflected on Ghostly's face. The dancing light and shadow trembled in the boundary between darkness and light. That man calmly said, "I have no intention to be your enemy, but it seems that this is unavoidable." The beast deity let out a cold laugh and said, "You think with your skills you can defeat me?" Ghostly did not speak and did not stop. The deep footsteps reverberated in the empty space. There was no wind, but for some reason, the only flame in this huge stone chamber suddenly started to sway. The light gradually intensified. The darkness was like the netherworld, silent and unfathomable, not knowing how many evil spirits and demons were staring at the people in the light from the darkness. Ghostly walked towards the beast deity in the fire. Suddenly, that ball of fire abruptly rose, blossomed with dazzling light. The entire fire volume was several times bigger than when it was burning peacefully. In the raging fire, there seemed to be a sound like a dragon's roar, reverberating far away. Following the dragon's roar, the entire stone chamber seemed to tremble. The dragon's roar grew louder and louder, and the echoes that came from the depths of the darkness did not show any signs of weakening. Instead, it rose higher and higher, almost becoming a sharp whistling sound. In the end, it was as deafening as the roar of mountains and the roar of a tsunami. Ghostly stopped because that ball of fire had already abruptly soared up from the brazier, blocking in front of him, and in that blazing fire, indistinctly, there seemed to be a pair of ferocious eyes, faintly discernible, watching him. The beast deity's figure had already disappeared behind the fire, but his calm voice was still clearly heard from the fire, said, "This is a southern border ancient inheritance formation, called Inferno 8 Fierce Formation. If you can break it and not die, whatever you want to do, I will also follow you." His voice had just landed. Almost at the same time, a roar burst out from the most dazzling part of the fire. That fire trembled violently. The surrounding 5 chi of ground was scorched. One could imagine the degree of heat around the brazier. A strong hot wind blew over from the front. Ghostly's clothes fluttered backwards, but his expression did not seem to be affected. Even the monkey, Xiao Hui, on his shoulder, stared at the fire with its 3 eyes, without fear or pain. Just that, their expressions were solemn. Anyone knew that this was only the beginning. The first piece of blood-red, ferocious deity pattern slowly appeared in the sky above the fire. That savage face and strange posture was exactly the same as the one in Funxiang Valley Inferno Altar. Ghostly stared at that picture. A complicated expression slowly appeared on his face. Chapter 399. One after another, lit up one after another, the blood-red light gradually joined together at the edge of the fire, forming a circular shape, encircling that ball of fire in the middle. The last blood-red light, when it gathered below the fire, suddenly the entire red halo instantly shone brightly. The red light rose sharply. Even the fire inside seemed to be suppressed. All of it, an extremely vicious energy, descended into this space. Deep inside that ball of fire, that pair of faintly discernible eyes also instantly enlarged. Oh! A deafening roar shook the heavens. In an instant, the entire stone chamber began to shake. The blazing flames danced endlessly like a demon, crazily swaying. In the depths of the flames, a ferocious beast covered in raging flames appeared. It roared as it looked at the world with disdain. Crimson Fire Beast. The beast that once guarded the ancient shaman tribe's 8 savage inferno formation in Funxiang Valley Inferno Altar appeared again, and facing it for the second time. Ghostly and Xiao Gui could not help but slightly change countenance. Xiao Hui bared its teeth, crouched on Ghostly's shoulder, facing that beast, angrily roared. The Crimson Fire Beast's huge body continuously appeared from the 8 savage inferno formation. First its huge head, then its shoulders, front legs. Slowly, its body and hind legs also slowly appeared, following its arrival. The temperature in the entire stone chamber rose even more. Ghostly's clothes even started to show signs of being burnt yellow. Finally, the last part of the blazing body appeared. The Crimson Fire Beast, this huge monster, was surrounded by raging flames, standing in front of Ghostly and Xiao Hui. Ghostly was only half the height of this ferocious beast's foot. And behind this beast, that strange halo formed by the 8 ferocious deity images, at times bright and at times flickering, followed behind the Crimson Fire Beast. As if a demon was grinning hideously ahead. The ferocious air gushed over from all directions. The familiar feeling seemed to start to boil in his blood again. He even vaguely remembered the last time at Funxiang Valley Inferno Altar, that tragic battle. Ghostly did not move. He only stared intently at that arrogant beast before him. The crimson fire beast, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, slowly turned its head. A gush of scorching heat waves surged past. That pair of eyes that seemed to be burning saw Ghost Li and the three-eyed monkey Xiao Hui on his shoulder. The crimson fire beast's huge head paused for a moment. After a moment, it suddenly let out an earth-shattering roar. That roar was filled with anger, resentment, and a strong desire for revenge. The blazing flames seemed to explode in an instant, turning from scarlet to pure white. Countless flames rose into the air, forming a blazing fireball that spun rapidly. The terrifying head suddenly opened its huge mouth, and with a roar, it bit down. Before his head touched the ground, the surrounding ground had already cracked, endless raging flames like the scorching sun descending into the mortal world, howling as they pounced down, instantly drowning Ghost Li's figure. The flames that erupted in that instant were like the climax of a carnival, blooming brilliantly. And behind the flames, in that pair of tired eyes, there was no trace of sorrow or joy in life. The surroundings were dark and silent. Lu Sueki and the others had been walking in this ancient cave for a long time. Although they had been on high alert along the way, they had not encountered any ambushes after walking for such a long time. In the darkness, the beautiful figure shrouded by the gentle pale blue light, Ainan's cold face gazed out from the darkness, seemed to be even more beautiful. In the contrast of the darkness, there seemed to be an additional trace of mysterious cold aura, like the legendary black lily that quietly bloomed in the darkness, growing for 1,000 years, blooming only for a moment. She could not get rid of the gazes that looked at her from time to time. However, Lu Sueki did not seem to feel this. Her bright eyes only stared at the front. Although there was only endless darkness there seemed to be something that she hoped to see in the depths of the darkness. She walked forward, never turning back. The darkness quietly retreated in front of her, and then slowly closed up behind her. Such a gentle figure in the darkness was so eye-catching that it even covered the light of the people behind her. Looking at it, it seemed like she was walking alone. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. The rest behind her also stopped. Li Sun vigilantly looked around, walked up, and was about to ask when he was startled. Ainan's face revealed a complicated expression, seemed to be on high alert. And at this moment, the darkness ahead, which had always been silent, suddenly had a change, an indistinct throbbing, as if suddenly appearing in the darkness, and then slowly rolling, becoming bigger, stronger. In the darkness, something seemed to be slowly gathering, like whistling, like roaring, but everything was silent. The next moment, it came from an unknown place in the distance. An intense tremor accompanied by a deep roar came rumbling from afar. Then it rapidly grew louder, as if in the depths of this cave there was an unparalleled giant spirit beast roaring towards the sky. The surrounding quiet darkness, right now like being ignited, started to boil. Deep in the darkness, countless whistling sounds surged over from all directions. For a moment, everyone's countenance changed. Li Sun stepped back, swiftly shouted, "Form a circle, be careful and on guard." The Funxiang Valley members were all experienced veterans, although shocked but not panicked. One by one they huddled together, vigilantly watching ahead. The surrounding stone walls started to tremble, as if there was some kind of huge force slowly spreading out. Even the ground beneath their feet also showed signs of trembling. In the darkness ahead, the strange commotion became even more intense, as if responding to something, whistling something. In this almost earth-shattering situation, Ainan, for some reason, did not retreat half a step. Distancing herself from her comrades who were in formation, she stood alone in front of the darkness, in front of the pale blue light. The darkness seemed to be malevolently facing her, as if to swallow her at any time. Without any warning, a heat wave suddenly rushed out from the depths of the darkness. Like a huge wave that could topple mountains and overturn seas, surged in this ancient cave. Ainan's clothes and hair fluttered at the same time, but her figure did not waver at all. The feeling of the heat wave blowing on her face indistinctly carried some craziness. It was even more difficult to imagine, in the depths of this cave, the source of that power. What kind of scene it was now. Anan did not speak, only in this raging wind, staring at the wildly dancing darkness ahead. The hot wind was raging. She suddenly raised her head. That wind blew on her face like frost, just that in her eyes there seemed to be an even more fiery gaze, burning deep in her heart. That depths of darkness, that dark distance, she suddenly made a long howl, her figure actually in this earth-shattering and mountain-shaking. The raging hot wind, when against the wind and mountain, shot towards the depths of the darkness. Li Sun, Zheng Shu, and the others behind him were aghast, not understanding. Li Sun was about to call out, but the light blue radiant figure, like an arrow leaving the bow, disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye without the slightest hesitation. He was speechless, unable to speak for a long time. Zheng Shu slowly walked to his side, patted his shoulder. Li Sun did not turn back to look at him. The heat wave gradually weakened, and the violent shaking in the surroundings gradually stabilized. Everything slowly returned to its original state. If it weren't for the falling rubble, it would almost give people the illusion that this was just a dream in the darkness. Just that beautiful figure who had already disappeared, clearly indicated, in this strange cave, danger lurked everywhere. Li Sun was silent for a moment, calmed himself down, was about to speak. Suddenly a young Funxiang Valley disciple beside him shouted, "Someone, who is it?" Everyone else was shocked and quickly looked forward. Sure enough, they saw a figure flash in the darkness, and a person walked out. She had a slender figure, and there was a hint of charm to her as she walked. It was a beautiful woman. Everyone was stunned. For a moment thought that Anan had returned. Li Sun almost called out in joy, but when the words were at the tip of his tongue, suddenly, the smile on his face stiffened, slowly turned ashen, hatred in his eyes. At the same time, an incredulous sneer said, "So it is you." That lady heard the voice, also seemed shocked, looked up, her countenance changed again. This lady had delicate features, charming to the bone. It was Jean Pinger. Chapter 400. Just that right now, Jean Pinger's expression was extremely tired, as if she had just gone through a great battle. Her energy exhausted, but even so, facing these good faction disciples, Jean Pinger still revealed a soul-stirring smile. In the darkness, she looked exceptionally delicate and pitiful. "Naturally, it is me, this Funxiang Valley Gongzi. Why, we have only met a few times, and you still can't forget me?" Li Sun's face turned red, stepped back, angrily said, "Who can't forget you? You this witch, at that time you harmed my Yanhong junior sister. Now, I'm going to collect the blood debt from you." After speaking, Li Sun waved his hand, his figure like lightning, already swept towards Jean Pinger. Zheng Shu frowned behind, wanted to speak but hesitated, and the Funxiang Valley disciples beside him, after hesitating for a moment, with a shout, one after another swarmed up. For a moment the momentum was rather great. Jean Pinger snorted, a mocking look flashed in her eyes, just that with so many enemies pouncing on her at the same time, she was also exhausted. Naturally, she would not force herself to fight. On her gentle face, a trace of determination suddenly flashed, as if she had made up her mind. At the same time, with a light shout, purple light appeared on the edge of her right hand. Her murderous aura surged. Li Sun had fought with Jean Pinger several times, knew this evil faction witch's power, quickly took precautions, at the same time discovered the sound of wind behind him. Many of his junior brothers were swarming up. Li Sun was shocked, quickly shouted to stop. Everyone was stunned, one after another stopped, but in this moment of confusion, suddenly Jean Pinger's purple light exploded, like a ball of purple flame sweeping over. Li Sun, with a loud shout, blocked in front of everyone, the celestial sword in his hand, unsheathed, blocked this purple light. Just at this seemingly powerful spell, after Li Sun blocked it, suddenly frowned, paused for a moment. The expected power was like a piece of thin paper. The seemingly powerful spell instantly dissipated, and behind the purple light, Jean Pinger's figure had already disappeared into the darkness. Li Sun's face was ashen, and he said hatefully, "Cunning witch, We fell into her trap again. Let's chase after her. After speaking, he was the first to give chase. The Funxiang Valley people behind naturally followed his lead. One after another caught up. Zhang Shushu half opened his mouth, wanted to say something, but seeing the figures flashing past, he shook his head helplessly, sighed, carefully looked around, and slowly followed. Li Sun seemed to be extremely resentful towards Jean Pinger, pursued her all the way and refused to relax. Actually, with Jean Pinger's skills, if it was any other time and place, after scheming against Li Sun, to slip away like this, it was not a difficult thing for her. But right now, she was extremely unlucky. Firstly, in this ancient cave which seemed to have only one path, there was nowhere to hide. Secondly, not long ago, she had just fought with that mysterious lady, the nine-tailed celestial fox Xiao Bai. Although she was not injured and took advantage of Xiao Bai and Ghost Li's entanglement to finally escape, but she had also exhausted a large amount of her power by Xiao Bai's strange spell. One must know that Xiao Bai was the Fox Demon Clan's ancestor. Her skills were most likely more than 1,000 years. Her skills were high, her evil skills strong. In the entire world, she was also a first-class figure. Although Jean Pinger was also an intelligent girl, but she was still at a disadvantage under Xiao Bai's hands. This was actually nothing much. Firstly, it was not a loss of face. Secondly, Jean Pinger was not injured, and Xiao Bai also did not have the intention to hurt her, who knew that at this time of weakness, she would meet Li Sun and the rest. Li Sun pursued along the way, did not even have a moment to catch his breath. Funxiang Valley was one of the three great good faction sects, and Li Sun was also Funxiang Valley Master Yin Elan's proudest disciple. His skills were not to be underestimated. Jean Pinger tried to run with all her strength, but still could not escape Li Sun's eyes and ears. After a long time, Jean Pinger felt her chest slowly tightening. Even her breathing became uneven. Jean Pinger became more and more anxious ever since she entered this cave. Strange things happened one after another. First was meeting that mysterious girl Xiao Bai, then Ghost Li, and that mysterious girl disappeared at the same time. Not long ago, a strange roar and scorching heat wave were heard from deep inside the cave. It seemed to indicate that there were people fighting in the depths of the cave. Jean Pinger pondered a few times, but in the end still did not wish to enter rashly. After all, to her, she was not like Ghost Li, who was willing to take such a huge risk. Although her relationship with Ghost King Sect was not shallow, but it was not to the extent that she would risk her life for them. Just that right now, there was someone pursuing her bitterly. Jean Pinger dashed all the way, not knowing how far she had flown into the cave. This ancient cave was really terrifyingly deep. It was impossible to tell from the outside, only that the cave did not seem to have a serious incline downwards, not knowing where it actually led to. In the darkness, the sharp sound of the wind was like a knife. Not knowing when it started, the gusts of Yin wind had already disappeared, but Li Sun's voice was still following behind, never disappearing. And at this moment, in the darkness ahead, suddenly a blurry figure flashed. With Jean Pinger's eyesight, immediately saw that it was that girl who made her suffer. It was the nine-tailed celestial fox Xiao Bai. And Xiao Bai, who was quietly standing in the darkness, seemed to have sensed something. Her body lit up with a white, gentle light, slowly turned around. "It's you again," Xiao Bai frowned, indifferently said to Jean Pinger. Jean Pinger's path was blocked by her, had no choice but to stop. She had already experienced Xiao Bai's skills, really did not dare to act rashly. Just that right now, there was an obstruction in front and a pursuer behind. For the moment, her countenance changed. Xiao Bai's face seemed to be preoccupied, glanced at Jean Pinger and did not have the intention to give way, as if unwilling to let her pass, was about to speak. Suddenly she was surprised again, turned back to look, and then suddenly sneered, said, "Strange, there are really a lot of people here today." As he spoke, Li Sun's figure swept out from the darkness with a whistling sound. When he saw that there was another beautiful, unfamiliar girl in the field, Li Sun was obviously a little wary. He did not immediately attack Jean Pinger, who was standing in front of him, but stood still. Xiao Bai glanced at Li Sun. Suddenly her eyes turned cold, seemed to recognize Li Sun. The next moment, whistling sounds of wind were heard. Figures kept flashing in the darkness behind Li Sun. It was the other Funxiang Valley disciples who had arrived. Their skills were not as good as Li Sun, and their speed was also much slower than him. Xiao Bai's eyes scanned the disciples' faces and clothes, suddenly sneered and said, "Funxiang Valley people?" Jean Pinger could not help but glance at Xiao Bai, indistinctly heard Xiao Bai's displeasure towards these Funxiang Valley people, couldn't help but secretly felt happy. And Li Sun, for the moment, could not figure out Xiao Bai, and he was also unwilling to complicate matters at this moment, immediately said in a clear voice, "I am Li Sun, Funxiang Valley Yun Elon's disciple. I wonder who Miss is?" "We have no intention to offend Miss, just that this girl," he pointed at Jean Pinger, said, "she is a sinful and sinful evil sect which we're just about to get rid of her. If Miss has no other matters, please stand aside. We will be eternally grateful." Xiao Bai snorted. Not only did she not leave, instead slowly walked 2 steps forward, faintly said, "I have some matters, so I cannot leave." Li Sun's countenance changed. A few of the Funxiang Valley disciples behind him had already shouted out angrily. Li Sun, in a deep voice, said, "This miss, by protecting this which, you are making Funxiang Valley your enemy, also making the world's good faction your enemy. Do you know?" Xiao Bai laughed in spite of herself, stretched out her white, jade-like palm, gently stroked her hair, sneered and said, "Making Funxiang Valley my enemy? Making the world's good faction your enemy? Ignorant junior, these are all leftovers from your grandaunt's thousands of years ago." The Funxiang Valley disciples burst into an uproar. Anger also flashed past Li Sun's face, just that his composure was after all better than these junior brothers, and for the moment he could not figure out this mysterious girl's identity. Instead, he stopped those junior brothers who were about to charge forward, coldly said, "This miss is such a big tone. May I ask, who are you?" Xiao Bai did not answer her, instead looked dazed. After a long while, she seemed to be muttering to herself. Suddenly, "Poochie," she laughed out for no reason, shook her head, quietly laughed, and said, "Grandaunt, AI, it's been a long time since I spoke like this. Even I can't understand what you were saying. It's really... AI, don't tell me I am really old?" Speaking, the smile on her face slowly disappeared. In a daze, looking at her expression, she seemed to be in a trance. Jean Pinger was speechless. For a moment she did not know what this strange girl was thinking. And no matter how good-tempered Li Sun's, he was about to explode from Xiao Bai's anger. Angrily said, "I am advising you. If you still do not move aside, don't blame us for offending you." After speaking, he sneered twice, said, "Just based on your words challenging the world's good faction, I can capture you. You better not be unable to differentiate good from bad." Xiao Bai slowly looked up, looked at Li Sun, looked deeply at him, suddenly said, "That young lady." Jean Pinger did not react at first, until Xiao Bai called for the second time. She was stunned, said, "You are calling me?" Xiao Bai snorted, said, "If not you, then who should I call?" Speaking, she gently waved her hand, took a step forward, stood between Li Sun and Jean Pinger, said, "You go, I will block these people for you." Li Sun and the rest immediately changed countenance. Jean Pinger was overjoyed. For a moment she could not believe it, quickly said, thank you, senior." After speaking, fearing that this strange woman would go back on her words, she hurriedly dashed into the darkness ahead. How could Li Sun and the rest let this murderer escape again? They were about to chase after her when a white light flashed. Instantly, a light screen had already lit up, blocking in front of Xiao Bai, completely blocking the way. A moment later, Jean Pinger's figure had already disappeared. Li Sun gritted his teeth in anger, turned, and angrily said to Xiao Bai, "Who exactly are you? Why are you helping that witch?" Xiao Bai smiled, as if Li Sun's anger to her made her even happier, leisurely said, "Me? Who I am is none of your business. As for why I want to help her, not for any other reason, just because I find you Funxiang Valley people an eyesore." Li Sun and the rest of the Funxiang Valley disciples behind him were stunned, for a moment speechless. Li Sun could not help but ask, "This lady, don't tell me we have met before, or have we ever offended you?" Xiao Bai shook her head and rolled her eyes slightly. Her eyes were rippling like water, and a faint seductive smile hung on the corner of her mouth. She said, "We have never seen each other, and you have never offended me." But She smiled and seemed to be very happy as she said, "We have never seen each other before. But I just find Funxiang Valley an eyesore. What can you do to me?" Li Sun and the rest were so infuriated that the roots of their teeth were itching. Without waiting for Li Sun's order, Funxiang Valley disciples had already pounced forward with angry bellows. Li Sun also did not stop them. This girl had insulted and provoked. If he still did not teach her a lesson, Funxiang Valley would not have any face in the future. In the darkness, several figures, one after another, leapt out from the darkness towards that white light screen, and behind the light screen, Xiao Bai's smile was still there, just that in her eyes there were more traces of mockery. The wind, accompanied by the swiftly passing figures, turned into sharp whistles, whistling incessantly beside her ears, not knowing how much distance, disappeared under her feet. Lu Sweki flew in this ancient dark cave, heading towards that unknown mystery ahead. For some reason, she clearly did not know what was waiting for her ahead, but in her heart there was a fanatical emotion, burning fiercely in her frost-like heart, like the most fervent flame. And so she flew, disregarding everything else. The figures behind her had already disappeared. When she passed by a place just now, she almost subconsciously felt that there seemed to be a figure hidden in the darkness. However, this feeling disappeared in the blink of an eye. In that split second, the figure in the darkness seemed to have some unusual movements. Then, as if it had discovered something, it actually disappeared again. Far behind him, amidst the whistling wind, was there a soft sigh? Lu Sweki did not know. She did not take this feeling to heart at all. This kind of life, how many things or people would be worth it for you to disregard everything? If there wasn't, maybe it was sorrow? If there was, then disregard everything. Tianya's celestial sword in her hand gave out more and more intense light, like the most surging tide, flashing with a loud bang. That blue figure flew further and further, but also seemed nearer and nearer. The wind was still howling. The road ahead was still dark, just that eventually there would still be someone at the end of this road. She sped, sped, sped. That beam of green light slowly lit up ahead. Lu Sweki finally saw the first beam of light in the darkness, far away in the darkness, like a lonely spirit softly pacing back and forth. She suddenly stopped. In that instant, Tianya's celestial sword's light all retracted, like a woman quietly hiding her fear. The darkness slowly surged up, swallowing her figure, concealing it. She in the darkness quietly watched that green light. Behind that green light, what would be waiting for her? Disappointment, or him? If it was him, so what? She actually hesitated and hesitated, that burning fervor in her heart like a flame, still burning and never disappeared, just that deep in that flame. There was a faint sorrow. She stared for a long, long time, slowly moved her feet, stepped back. Was it fear? Was it retreat? In this life, is there anyone that you cannot face? Unable, or dare not? Slowly, there was a suffocating feeling. The darkness sinisterly laughed around. Who was ahead? Fate had never smiled. Who could so easily defeat themselves? Never feared life and death. Never feared time. But who could completely face the deepest heart? In the darkness, silence. She seemed to want to retreat again. Not being able to see her face, what kind of pain was it? Suddenly, that blazing heat wave suddenly appeared. Behind that green light, a deafening roar was heard. Scarlet flame, like a malevolent murderer, savagely laughing in this world. The roar intimidated all living things in the world. The ground below and the surrounding rock walls once again started to shake. Probably because of the proximity, the shaking became even more violent. It was unimaginable in the depths of that flame. What kind of scene would it be? The firelight reflected far away. The pair of eyes suddenly brightened in the darkness. What was burning seemed to be the eyes. Light blue light suddenly flashed again, burst out from the darkness. In the rolling heat wave, that beautiful figure stood facing the wind, her beautiful hair dancing. Boom! The deafening roar and the tremors of the earth like Thor made the mortals terrified. The entire cave seemed to be shaking. Numerous stones fell like rain around her, just that that figure had already disappeared. She flew, in that doomsday-like scene, and the increasingly frantic falling stones flew towards the depths of the flame. The brightest place flew. No one knew what was ahead. But who cared? Chapter 4:01. The sturdy ground, under the scorching flames, even started to show signs of melting. Raging flames continuously spurted out from the crimson fire beast's huge mouth, with the power to destroy everything, turning this huge stone chamber space into a terrifying sea of fire. Ghost Lee's figure, from the start, disappeared in the fire and never appeared again. After spurting out a wave of flames like a mountain, the crimson fire beast's burning eyes stared fiercely into the sea of fire, as if searching for something. Temporarily paused. The scorching flames were still burning on the ground. The surrounding air also seemed to be boiling. However, Ghost Lee and that monkey Xiao Hui on his shoulder disappeared at the same time. Could it be that he had already turned into ashes? The next moment, the answer appeared. Above the sea of fire, Ghost Lee's figure appeared in the air. In that instant, Ghost Lee, like an evil spirit, actually flashed above the crimson fire beast, completely avoiding the terrible flames. Right now, in his hand, that soul-devouring stick glimmering with green light once again appeared in the sea of fire, his face indifferent and calm. The monkey Xiao Hui on his shoulder, facing that huge magical beast below, suddenly bared its teeth, roared once. Obviously facing this old opponent, it too became agitated. Even though it was a monkey, but after being by Ghost Lee's side for so long, in its blood, more or less had some of the sinister orb's unyielding, ferocious energy. The crimson fire beast made an earth-shattering roar. The sound reverberated far away, like thunder, following which the huge body abruptly soared into the air. In that instant, the surrounding air was almost completely vaporized by the scorching flames, leaving only the scorching heat. That huge body glimmering with savage fire, with a loud crash, arrived. This time, Ghostly did not dodge. Looking at that ancient beast which was several times bigger than himself, a strange glint seemed to flash past his eyes. And behind the crimson fire beast pouncing over, that strange 8 ferocious deities' halo was still following behind it, slowly rotating, bright and uncertain, like a mysterious eye, coldly watching this battle. At the tip of the soul-devouring stick, the sinister orb's dark red blood veins, in a moment, lit up completely. Facing that fire body pouncing over, Ghostly not only did not retreat, this time he faced it head-on. The crimson fire beast didn't seem to think that this insignificant human would dare to confront it face to face. Instead, its body paused for a moment, but then the flames became more intense. With a loud roar, it bit down. Huge sparks like rain from the horizon rained down, but when they were 3 chi away from Ghostly, they met with an invisible barrier and were all bounced off. At the same time, Ghostly was still in front of the crimson fire beast, that pair of blazing gigantic eyes, almost in front of him. Ghostly was surrounded by layers of raging flames. Beside him, Xiao Hui made a sharp cry. The soul-devouring stick moved forward, aimed at the crimson fire beast's head, stabbed over. The green light instantly flourished, like a brilliant lotus flower bursting out from the flames. Following which, an incomparably beautiful red that was as red as fresh blood bloomed from the depths of the lotus. Bright red. The sinister orb in the scorching air also seemed to tremble slightly, the power channeled into it. For how many years had it not been so powerful? That green energy in the depths of the orb revolved rapidly, as if roaring and thirsting for slaughter. That was clearly a sea of fire, but the surrounding temperature suddenly turned cold. An icy cold air descended from the sky, enveloping the crimson fire beast. For the first time, this ancient guardian beast instinctively felt fear in its shock, but an even stronger instinct urged it to make an even more ferocious roar, bit down towards Ghostly. When that giant pounced down, the raging flames rumbled down, and at this moment, Ghost Lee's soul-devouring stick stabbed deeply into the crimson fire beast's roaring mouth. The gigantic body paused in the air. The surrounding air was still scorching hot, but a chill, as if from the depths of one's heart, emanated out. Unknowingly, since when, Xiao Hui was still crouching on Ghost Lee's shoulder. Its body did not change, but in its 3 eyes, as if it had received some agitation, had already turned red, looking extremely glaring. And right now, watching the crimson fire beast under Ghost Lee's devouring soul attack, its declining momentum in an instant, Xiao Hui's face revealed a savage expression. Facing that crimson fire beast, bared its fangs, laughed hideously. In a blink, the surrounding temperature continued to drop. The high temperature on the crimson fire beast also receded, as if carrying an indescribable fear in its eyes. The crimson fire beast's burning eyes glinted with fear. Ghostly, who was standing in the air, slowly lifted his head from the soul-devouring stick in his hand. Red fire filled the entire magical weapon, as if it was mercilessly absorbing the crimson fire beast's essence, bit by bit. Ghostly's face seemed to show slight pain. A layer of scarlet-yellow light also appeared on his face, but after flashing 3 times, it was covered by a layer of golden light. The crimson fire beast could no longer support its gigantic body. Fell down from the air, the insufferably arrogant monster, just a moment ago, right now had turned into such a weak state. If one did not see it with one's own eyes, it would be hard to believe. The flames in the stone chamber quickly dissipated. The temperature also dropped rapidly. Replacing the high temperature was the extreme chill from Ghost Lee's body, with a trace of evil smell. The crimson fire beast fell to the ground. The raging flames on its body were almost gone. Looking from afar, this guardian beast seemed to have lost most of its strength after staring hatefully at Ghost Lee, who was slowly falling. The crimson fire beast finally made a roar, and then its gigantic body slowly dissipated into the air. Just that although its body dissipated, the mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos in the air did not disappear and seemed to not be affected by the battle just now. It was already flickering, slowly rotating, slowly retreating. Finally, it stopped again in front of the beast deity who was still sitting on the ground, above that ancient brazier. In the brazier, the flames quietly burned. In a stretch of icy cold air shrouded by Ghost Lee's sinister orb evil power. This was the only fire and light. It seemed to be completely unaffected by Ghost Lee's evil power. Ghost Lee once again landed on the ground, but on his face there was no joy of victory. Looking at the still burning flames, his pupils seemed to be contracting slightly. That mysterious halo, slowly rotating, the 8 ferocious deities' statues, lit up one by one, dimmed, and then brightened, as if mysteriously telling something. Under the halo was the beast deity's deeply weary but still smiling face. Clap, clap, clap. The beast deity lightly clapped, warmly smiled, said, "Impressive, impressive. I didn't expect you to have such skills and such a powerful magical weapon. Although I had expected your skills to be high, but I didn't expect it to be high to this extent." He quietly sighed, as if mocking himself, said, "I always seem to be wrong, isn't it?" Ghostly looked at him, unhurriedly said, "The crimson fire beast that appeared this time, although it was imposing, but its power cannot be compared to that time in Funxiang Valley Inferno Altar." The beast deity looked at Ghostly, did not speak, but in his eyes slowly showed approval, nodded. Ghostly indifferently said, "This crimson fire beast is clearly the guardian spirit beast of the 8 ferocious inferno formation passed down by the shaman tribe. So, as long as this formation is present and can still be activated, it can summon this kind of first-class beast. Just that the crimson fire beast is a spirit beast imprisoned in the formation. The greater the inferno energy in the formation, the more powerful it will be." He glanced at the brazier in front of the beast deity, said, "This brazier, is it the legendary gathering fire brazier that can gather the essence of heaven and earthly fire?" The beast deity smiled, said, "That's right, it is the gathering fire brazier." Ghostly nodded, indifferently said, "With this gathering brazier, you can use the inferno energy in it to drive the inferno, activate the formation and summon the Crimson Fire Beast. But although this magical weapon is mystical, it may not be comparable to the Inferno altar in Funxiang Valley, the rich firepower accumulated by the lava for thousands of years, continuously supplying the formation. So the Crimson Fire Beast that you summon this time, although it looks powerful, but it is just an empty shell. Ha, good, good. The beast deity laughed, clapped his hands, and said, "What a good empty shell." Well said. Unfortunately, in this world, other than you, who else can say this? Ghostly looked deeply at him, said, "At least the person who severely injured you has the right to say this." The beast deity's smile suddenly disappeared. His face darkened. His gaze also turned cold. Looked at Ghostly. Ghostly looked straight into his eyes. His gaze was calm, but he also felt a breathtaking aura emitting from that sickly-looking body. The beast deity looked at Ghostly, slowly opened his mouth, and said, "I heard the person who injured me seemed to have some grudge with you." Ghostly's expression immediately changed. The two men looked at each other, did not speak again, but the atmosphere in the stone chamber seemed to have dropped to freezing point. Chapter 402. And at this moment, suddenly, both of them seemed to sense something at the same time. The beast deity lifted his eyes slightly. Ghostly instead turned around, looked at the entrance of this stone chamber. That glance, like a startled swan sweeping past in the darkness, left a mark in their hearts. The Crimson Fire Beast had already disappeared. The entire huge stone chamber once again fell into darkness. Only the brazier in front of the beast deity still had a ball of flame quietly burning, illuminating the surrounding small area, emitting some light and warmth. Even the slowly rotating halo of the 8 ferocious deities above the brazier was not that dazzling. However, at that moment, in the depths of the darkness, a figure was gently enveloped by a light blue and gentle radiance, standing there quietly. A familiar face was reflected in his eyes. He was stunned for a moment, but it felt like thousands of years had passed. In a daze, looking at her, step by step, slowly approaching. Ainin Sweki's hand, in the dim darkness, looked very pale, not knowing if it was because she was grabbing Tianya with too much force. But on her face, there was not the slightest agitation, just like when they first met, that cold and frosty lady. She slowly approached, walked to his side, and stood down. Did not speak. In her eyes, there was only the reflection of that ball of flame. That moment, how much time had passed? The beast deity silently watched this man and woman's strange actions, but did not say anything and did not do anything. In his deep eyes that could never be seen clearly, flashed a complicated expression, but who would be able to understand? And him stood side by side. Ainin Sweki's eyes, ever since she walked over, did not look at Ghostly again. After a long while, in the slightly strange atmosphere which had been silent for a long time, only her low, calm voice, but as if in that calmness there was an indescribable emotion, quietly said, "So, it really is you." Ghostly did not speak. He watched this lady before him, that graceful and beautiful face after a long time. What he did was only one thing. He towards her, slowly smiled. Then he stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder, and took a deep breath. The fire that reverberated from the depths of his chest seemed to warm his entire heart. Lu Sweki seemed to have sensed something. Slowly, her pale face blushed, but she did not try to hide it. On her frosty face, she looked forward at the ball of fire, the fire reflected in her eyes, and smiled. That warm smile. Two figures stood side by side, looking at the beast deity, facing this insufferably arrogant devil. In the beast deity's eyes, a pained expression flashed past, and he slowly lowered his head. The fire burned quietly. The scene in the stone room seemed to be a little hazy in the light of the fire. The three figures stood there for a long time, until the beast deity raised his head again. His gaze paused on Ainin for a moment, then fell on Ghostly. He suddenly said, "Can you promise me one thing?" Ghostly was stunned. He did not expect him to say such a thing. For a moment, he did not know how to answer, and could only say, "What?" The beast deity's face showed a deep weariness. He said faintly, "No matter what your motives are, you will have to fight me anyway." If you die in my hands, naturally there is nothing to say. If I lose, I will not blame you. I only hope that after you leave this ancient cave, do one thing for me." Ghostly said, "Speak." The beast deity was silent for a moment, said, "You remember there is a stone statue at the entrance of the cave, right?" A strange expression flashed past Ghostly's face. He slowly nodded and said, "Yes." The beast deity's voice became low. He faintly said, "If you have the chance to leave, help me pick a bouquet of her favorite lilies and place it in front of her." "Lilies? I understand." Ghostly slowly nodded, but in his tone, there seemed to be some strange emotions. Anan felt it, but did not say anything, only silently looked at him. The beast deity shook his head, as if laughing at himself, then turned to Ghostly and said with a smile, "But what about the two of you? If you stay here and never have the chance to leave, what wishes would you have?" His gaze slowly fell from Ghostly to Anan's face. He smiled slightly. A strange glint seemed to flicker in his eyes. He said, "What about you? Do you also have any wishes?" Ghostly was silent. Anan did not speak either. After a moment, Anan quietly looked at Ghostly, only to see that on his face there was a vaguely complicated expression with some traces of pain. She took a deep breath, suddenly said, "I have no greater wishes." Although her tone was flat, her words were resolute and decisive. She didn't give herself any leeway in the slightest. Perhaps she really did not want to give herself any leeway. Ghostly's body trembled. Then he looked at the girl beside him, gazed deeply, did not speak. The beast deity looked at Anan. The strange glint in his eyes grew brighter and brighter. Suddenly, he clapped his hands, although his body was still swaying, but he still stood up. Bright-colored silk clothes swept past him. The evil beast Tai also stood up, growled softly beside its master. "Good, good, well said." The beast deity looked at Anan, his eyes slowly emitting a kind of inexplicable fanaticism. That's it. In this world, there are still women like her." He looked up to the sky and laughed, as if he had gone mad. But at the end of his laughter, it sounded like a wail with a little whimper. As his body swayed, an inexplicable aura slowly rose. The originally quiet and slowly rotating halos of the 8 ferocious deities suddenly sped up, and at the same time, the 8 deities lit up at the same time. That ancient ferocious aura that seemed to come from the ancient fiend god was completely different from the previous crimson fire beast's roar. Instantly spread out, the flames in the ancient brazier, under the urging of the demon power, once again, slowly became bigger. And this time, that ball of burning flame slowly left the brazier, like a body embedded in that mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos, together with the 8 deities, rose into the air, burning fiercely. "You are right. The crimson fire beast that I summoned is indeed not as good as the Inferno Altar's formation because of the lack of Inferno power." After the halos, a red glow appeared on the beast deity's pale face, as if because of the descent of this exceptional evil power, he was also revived. But the formation here was personally set up by Ling Long, far surpassing the formation at the Inferno Altar. This mystery I will let you all see. In his mournful long laughter, his entire body floated into the air, slowly merged into that ball of flames, and finally disappeared. On the ground, Tao Tai roared loudly. The next moment, on that 8 ferocious deities, suddenly, all of the deities' eyes like bloodshot, suddenly lit up with red light, like the evil demons waking up again. In that instant, the sky full of deities howled together. The sharp cries blanketed the sky, and earth deafening. That ball of fire burned more and more, deep inside the fire. Rumbling like thunder sounds were heard continuously. The heart of the fire gradually turned pure white, even though it was far away. With Ghostly and Lu Swecky's cultivation, they could still feel the unbearable heat. Amidst the demonic howls that filled the sky, a mysterious incantation reverberated. The incantation was obscure and long, ancient and profound. It was as if the ancestors of the ancient times were worshipping a god, using all the faith and spiritual energy in their bodies to summon the god in their dreams. Huge flames burning. That incantation like a storm, tearing people's hearts. An incantation like knocking on one's soul. Suddenly, an enormous and unstoppable force abruptly spread out from deep inside the huge flames. That force was so strong, Ghostly and Lou Swecky could not resist it, were forced to fly backwards. What terrible incantation, and what kind of terrifying spiritual creature was summoned to have such power? For a moment, Ghostly and Lou Swecky's countenance changed. How could this be a force that human could resist? That flame burned crazily, like a demon dancing in the air, welcoming the terrifying arrival of the fire. The hottest place, almost the pure white flame core, suddenly, in the violent flashes like some kind of creature, slowly panted, opened its eyes. In an instant, the ancient and hard rock walls around them began to shatter. Countless huge cracks appeared on the ground, and from the depths of the cracks, a scarlet light shone out. It was as if there was a terrifying volcano beneath their feet that was about to erupt, and that panting sound like a dragon roar in this space reverberated. Chapter 403. Subdue, Devil, Ancient Cave, Entrance. Before Linglong, witch goddess statue, Hey Moo stood silently, and the ferocious black tiger also seemed to be silent, standing behind him. Lou Swecky and the rest had already been in for a long time, not to mention Ghostly and the rest, and in such a long period of time, nobody knew what exactly happened in that ancient cave. Just that, the two brothers did not seem to show any concern. In their eyes, there seemed to only be that Linglong, witch goddess statue. Suddenly, in this silence, the street beneath their feet started to tremble slightly. Indistinct roars of thunder came from that subdued devil ancient cave. Hey Moo's body shook, turned and looked at the black tiger, but before they could understand, an even bigger change had already happened. The originally dark firmament, shrouded in the black clouds above the scorched black mountain peak, suddenly shot out a golden light, like a sharp sword, descended from the sky, piercing through the heavy darkness. Following that, the edges of the thick black clouds started to emit faint golden light, as if the black clouds were inlaid with a layer of golden light. The rumbling of thunder, which had not been heard for thousands of years, resounded in the sky above the cursed mountain once again. The clouds began to surge crazily, as if there was some kind of mysterious power that was continuously awakening, causing even the heavens and earth to be moved. Hey Moo and the black tiger stared blankly at the changes. Suddenly, Hey Moo turned, hesitated for a moment. His voice seemed to tremble slightly, quietly said, "The Een wind," also disappeared. The black tiger's huge body stared deep into the cave. In the deep darkness, there was no more bone-chilling Een wind. Replacing it was blazing, rolling heat waves. "What's going on? What happened inside?" Hey Moo's voice was indistinctly agitated, but his face was covered by the black cloth. His expression could not be seen clearly, only that he was staring intently at that subdued devil ancient cave. On the contrary, the black tiger, facing these changes, his expression was extremely complicated and strange, as if there was indescribable joy, but the face formed by the white smoke revealed a trace of sorrow. "It's the fire dragon, the 8 wilderness fire dragon," he indifferently, quietly said. "What?" Hey Moo turned around in disbelief. He stared at Hey Hu and said, "What did you say? The fire dragon of 8 remotes? In this world, besides Empress, how could there be anyone else who can summon the fire dragon of 8 remotes?" Black Tiger's gaze was vast, slowly turned to that stone statue. After a long while said, "Originally there was no one here because that summoning incantation and the Inferno mirror had long been lost." But he smiled and then looked at Blackwood with a strange expression, said, "But in this world, there is still one person who had comprehended the shaman lady's entire witchcraft incantation, and the only remaining 8 savage inferno formation that could summon the 8 wildlands fire. Dragon, coincidentally, is here." Blackwood was startled and did not speak. After a long while, he shook his head dejectedly and said, "So he actually has this move. But the 8 desolate fire dragon is a vicious creature that could destroy all things. He summoned this divine beast. Could it be that he forgot that the Empress used this fire dragon to burn him alive?" Heihu sneered and said, "Who knows? I only remember what Her Highness said to me on her deathbed before she left." Blackwood, with shock, said, "What?" Thick hatred appeared on Black Tiger's face. He abruptly turned around and looked at the strange changes, the tremors in the subdued devil ancient cave, sneered and said, "Her Highness said, no matter how many years later, once the fire dragon revives and descends here, it will be the end of this sin." Heimu mumbled, "When the sin ends." Suddenly, his expression changed, said, "Don't tell me that Her Highness had already predicted this?" Black Tiger ignored him. To him, in this scorching hot wind, the clouds rolling in the horizon, golden rays flashing chaotically at this moment of heaven and earth chaos, in his eyes, there was only that stone statue. He slowly moved to the front of the stone statue. All the expressions on his face disappeared, quietly said, "Her Highness, Her Highness, I have finally waited for this day. Don't be anxious. Wait a while more. When everything is over, Black Tiger will come and find you, and from then on, serve you forever." Heimu stared blankly at this elder brother of his previous life, and then he looked up to the sky. That day, what was returned to him was a clap of thunder. Rumble. The wind and clouds became more turbulent. The tremors of the earth became more intense. In the subdued devil ancient cave tunnel, Zhang Shushu took half a step back, avoided a flashing white light body, hit at the side, but at the same time, he was secretly groaning. Ever since Li Sun and the rest, for some reason, suddenly provoked a white-attired lady in this subdued devil ancient cave, and this lady, who looked even more seductive than Jean Pinger, had unbelievably high skills. Li Sun and the rest of the Funxiang Valley disciples rushed up, but were all blocked by a strange Dao technique, and right now, all of them were trapped by this lady's spell. That was exactly the same spell that Xiao Bai used to trap Jean Pinger. The mysterious white light ball charged towards the crowd. The Funxiang Valley disciples used their own magical weapons to deflect it, but unexpectedly, the more they fought, the more magical weapons appeared. At the start, it was nothing, but after a while, the entire cave was enveloped by the white light. Funxiang Valley disciples were numerous, but their ability to adapt to the situation was not as good as Jean Pinger. That white light body, almost in a blink, had spawned countless of them, all charged and collided in the air, making those Funxiang Valley disciples who initially wanted to capture Xiao Bai and punish her, groaned incessantly. Seeing the Funxiang Valley disciples in a predicament, Zhang Shushu could not stand by and could only join the battle. Unfortunately, that white-attired lady's skills were extremely high. Zhang Shushu could not catch up to her. On the contrary, he was soon surrounded by many white light balls. But Zhang Shushu was after all smarter than others. After a few rounds, he immediately knew something was amiss and hurriedly loudly reminded the Funxiang Valley disciples beside him not to randomly cut these white light balls. Everyone then came to their senses. But even so, these white light bodies already filled the sky, tightly surrounding these righteous faction disciples, shooting to the east and colliding to the west. Everyone was in a fluster. Xiao Bai slowly descended from the sky, landed on the ground, looked at the flickering white light, Funxiang Valley people's battered and exhausted state, sneered, and heaved a long sigh. Although she had attained Taoism for 1,000 years, but she was definitely not some compassionate, humble celestial being, imprisoned by Funxiang Valley in the Inferno altar for hundreds of years. This resentment, although she let it off lightly that day, but not finding trouble with Funxiang Valley people, was already Funxiang Valley disciples burning incense. And now, they actually came knocking on her door. Coincidentally, she was having a conversation with Ghostly and was in a bad mood. It could be said that she had bumped into the barrel of a gun. It was also at this moment that Xiao Bai, who was feeling proud of himself, suddenly felt a chill in his heart. A palpitating feeling that he had never felt before suddenly rose from the depths of his heart, and his heart involuntarily jumped a few times. An ancient and violent force, ahead, deep within this subdued devil ancient cave, slowly rose, as if sleeping for thousands and thousands of years, finally awakening for the first time. And just the beginning of this awakening had already changed the color of heaven and earth. Rumbling thunder sounds slowly came from the depths of the earth, violent tremors, following which from afar like waves surged over. The earth started to shake violently. This time, numerous huge stones started to fall, as if unable to withstand this huge force rebirth. Everyone turned pale with fright, in panic. Zhang Shushu used all his strength, loudly called out to Li Sun, "Li Sun, your brother, is too dangerous here. It is better for us to leave first." Li Sun's face was pale. With one sword he deflected a charging white light ball. Just that in his flustered state of mind, that light ball, after being deflected a few chi away, again split into two identical light balls, once again gathering strength in the air, looked like it was about to charge over again. But ever since this happened, Xiaobai seemed to be distracted. Her Dao skills also slowed down. The speed of those light balls also slowed down. Chapter 404. Li Sun's face alternated between green and white, suddenly clenched his teeth, loudly shouted, "All get out! I will cover the rear." After speaking, he flew up. Immediately his sword rays flourished. For a moment blocked most of the white light bodies. The Funxiang Valley disciples had always respected him. After hearing the words, they looked at the surroundings again. It was indeed not a place to stay for long. Immediately, everyone started to run towards the cave exit. Just that Li Sun did not seem to have the intention to leave. Zhang Shushu flew over, helped him to block several of the white light balls, loudly said, "Li Sun, your brother, why are you not leaving?" A trace of hesitation flashed past Li Sun's face, said, "But Lu Jr.'s sister is still inside." Zhang Shushu frowned, angrily said, "Lu Jr.'s sister is highly skilled. She may not be in trouble. You being so insistent, I'm afraid you will only harm others and yourself." Li Sun's countenance changed a few times. The surrounding tremors became more intense. The falling stones, after such a long time, not only did it not seem to be weakening, instead it seemed to be intensifying. He heaved a long sigh, eventually still flew back. Zhang Shushu glanced into the cave and also followed out. Those people's conversation, every word fell into Xiaobai's ears. Just that to her, other than faint sneers, nothing else touched her heartstrings. The white light balls in the cave moved slower and slower. After Li Sun and Zhang Shushu's figures swiftly disappeared, the white light balls which had lost their targets gradually stopped in the air, then gradually gathered, slowly merged, gradually forming a white light ball, flew toward Xiaobai. Xiaobai slowly turned, gazed into the cave. That ancient and enormous power was still continuously strengthening. Xiaobai could even clearly sense that it contained an incomparably powerful destructive power. The surrounding rock walls continued to shake. Large and small stones peeled off, and a rumbling sounds fell to the ground. Just that within 3 chi from her, not a single stone could hit her. The white light ball flew back to her, like a small elf, danced and spun around her, as if trying to fathom its master's thoughts. And on its master's blank face, there was only worry and disappointment. In the deep darkness at this moment, a loud roar burst out like a huge dragon's long roar. The dragon roared to the sky. That mysterious ancient force finally completely awakened. The huge stone chamber was completely enveloped by the intense fire. The darkness was completely expelled. Not a trace of darkness could be found. This light far surpassed any light in the world, even made one feel, even the scorching sun descending from the horizon, most likely would not be as bright. The once arrogant crimson fire beast, if compared to this, was like a firefly. Amidst this terrifying power, the hottest spot was undoubtedly the 8 ferocious deities' halos that were still rapidly rotating and flickering with strange halos. There, the flames which the beast deity had merged into became more and more intense. The sky was also filled with mysterious incantations. The heart of the flame which was constantly expanding and contracting, was like a crimson egg that was incubating some kind of terrifying thing. As the surrounding temperature continued to rise rapidly, that ancient and mysterious place was gathering the power that had been lost for millions of years bit by bit and descending into this world once again. The expanding and contracting fire core, like an incubating crimson egg, containing some terrible thing, and following the rapid rise of the surrounding temperature, that ancient and mysterious place, bit by bit condensed the power that had been lost for thousands of years, once again descended into this world. There was no sweat because every drop of sweat evaporated before it flowed out in the raging flames. Their red faces were reflected. Lou Swecki suddenly sensed something, looked at Ghostly, that man, without knowing when, held her hand. She did not have any shock, even in this sea of despair, facing that unknown, mysterious force. In her palm, on her fingertips, warmth came. Once familiar, 10 years ago it was like this, that past time when they held hands tightly in the darkness. Ghostly moved, left the wall that the two of them were leaning against, stood in front of Lou Swecki, faint green light, in the middle flickering indistinctly golden light, flashed from his hand, forming a light wall, blocking in front of him. Immediately, the scorching heat lessened a lot. Just that Ghostly's back trembled slightly, and then he inhaled deeply. Suddenly, the hand in his palm gripped him tightly. From behind him, a light blue radiance appeared. At first, it seemed to be in conflict with the green light, but very quickly, the two rays of light merged into one, forming an even more powerful light wall, blocking the terrifying scarlet flame's firelight. The man's shoulder, the man's back, quietly stood before her. Lou Swecki clenched her hand tightly, the corner of her mouth, in that sky full of fire, a faint smile. Suddenly, that long incantation stopped for that moment, as if everything froze, all the fire, the sky full of fire, Ghostly and Lou Swecki struggling to resist, and also that 8 ferocious deities rotating incessantly in the air. The deepest part of the hottest flame slowly split open. From a thin crack, it slowly grew bigger. From a crack about the size of a person, it became a hole that was several times larger. In the dazzling flame that filled the sky, that crack seemed to be the deepest darkness that could not be imagined. Then, something seemed to be staring coldly at the world outside from the depths of the crack. A ferocious despair that could make one go mad, instantly swept through every corner of this stone chamber. In the next moment, as if it had received the craziest stimulation, all the flames instantly burst forth with the most intense light. The dragon's roar rose higher and higher, like a never-ending carnival. In the depths of the flames, the dragon's roar rumbled, bringing with it terror, bringing with it despair. That ancient deity had descended from another world. The huge head slowly stretched out, as dazzling as the scorching sun, and unable to look directly at it. That was clearly a huge, ancient fire dragon bathed in the fire. Every place was fire. The huge dragon head seemed to have occupied the entire space. Ghostly and Lou Swecki dumbfoundedly looked at this insufferably arrogant, almost surpassing the existence of this world. Even forgot to resist, only relying on their instincts. Both of their magical weapons struggled to resist the surging fire, just that suffocating might seemed to have announced their fate. 8 Wilderness Fire Dragon. Southern Border Ancient Shaman Tribes Legend. The terrible, ferocious beast that destroyed everything in the world, the ultimate summoned creature of the 8 ferocious Inferno formation, finally, after thousands of years, reappeared in the world. The huge dragon head, slowly turning in the fire, did not immediately destroy anything. It was surrounded by the fire, from its huge horns to the fangs in its mouth. All showed a mysterious red and transparent color that could only be seen in extremely high temperature. Every deep breath of the huge dragon caused the entire stone chamber to shake violently, as if this space, to such a powerful creature, was only a narrow space. Even its body, until now, had not come out. Behind the dragon head, That rotating 8 ferocious deities' halo seemed to be hidden in the dazzling light of the fire dragon. In the indistinct, that huge halo also seemed to be trembling slightly. Was it because of the fire dragon's despairing power? Or was it the memories from long ago when it was possessed? No one knew. No one thought about that anymore, because at this moment, the huge fire dragon seemed to be slowly getting used to the strange feeling it had after waking up. On the dragon's head, in its red and transparent eye sockets, the raging flames slowly rose, and the dragon's head also slowly turned. After a while, this terrifying dragon head faced the stone chamber, the two figures who were struggling to resist in the corner. Roar! Instantly, a huge roar resounded through the entire world. Chapter 405. That roar seemed to come from far away, because in the sky full of roaring heat waves of flames, the terrifying 8 wilderness fire dragons' roar sounded rather far away, and what Ghost Lee and Lu Sweki were facing directly was the raging billows of huge flames, and the once solid ground beneath their feet right now had completely collapsed into a lava hell. Countless huge cracks cracked, scarlet red lava roared and surged beneath their feet, like waves splashing, hitting onto the remaining charred rocks, incessantly burning, making hissing sounds. The rolling flames covered the sky, and Earth, in a blink, had already arrived before them. In this despairing atmosphere, it was as if they could not breathe. His face, which was reflected red, veins seemed to flash on Ghost Lee's forehead. In front of that huge billow, his eyes widened. With a loud shout, the soul-devouring stick left his hand, floated in the air before him. At the same time, Ghost Lee's hands formed a seal similar to the Buddhism seal, but what floated from his palms was not the usual solemn golden light of Tian Temple Buddhism true way. Instead, it carried a trace of strange dark red light. Under the urging of his power, the soul-devouring stick abruptly stood up, standing vertically in the void, the sinister orb at the top, following Ghost Lee's hand seal forming. The Buddhism golden incantation floated up, and in between Ghost Lee's chest and the soul-devouring stick, the air in the void seemed to slowly distort, slowly congealing into a Taiji diagram. And in this Taiji diagram, what glimmered was not Qing Yun sect Taoism true way clear light, but mixed with various evil sects' strange skills. The few most powerful cultivation skills in the world, finally for the first time, at the same time, mastered and unleashed by one person. Under the residual light of the scarlet flames, Lu Sweki quietly stood behind Ghost Lee, staring at this man who was doing his best, together with him, facing that terrible fire dragon. Tianya faint blue light emitted from behind Ghost Lee. Her beautiful hair, in the billowing billow wind, fluttered. The next moment, the scorching flames crashed over. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had been engulfed in flames. It was as if he was placed in a furnace, suffering the pain of purgatory. Endless crimson flames roared in his ears, as if there were countless hands pulling at his body from all directions, wanting to tear him into pieces. His entire body trembled. However, in the raging sea of flames, there was still a strange light. After being submerged, tenaciously struggled and flashed out in the sea of flames. Soul-devouring. Gold, green, red, 3 colors of light. At the soul-devouring stick emitted an invisible wall, protecting its master in this doomsday-like crazy sea. Like a miracle, this attack from the 8 Wildlands fire dragon, which should have destroyed everything, was blocked by Ghost Lee. Even the monkey Xiao Hui, who was still lying on Ghost Lee's shoulder, flashed its 3 blood-red, ferocious eyes and roared at the fire dragon. Just that Ghost Lee was obviously not feeling well. His face that was once red from the flames instantly turned pale, without a trace of blood. Lu Sweki, who was standing behind him, immediately felt Ghost Lee's body trembling, hurriedly supported him. Just when she stretched out her hand to touch him, she was already shocked. Ghost Lee's entire body was abnormally scorching hot. Even Lu Sweki, this kind of cultivator, also felt a burning pain in her palm, not to mention Ghost Lee himself. What was even more shocking was, when Lusweki held Ghostly's hands, she immediately felt, although Ghostly was still maintaining his defensive posture, but both his hands and arms involuntarily trembled. The power of this blow was so terrifying. However, this attack was futile. The 8 Wildlands fire dragon in front of them shook its head slightly, as if it was surprised. In the midst of the red flames that burned like a mountain, the dragon slowly lowered its head. It did not immediately launch another attack. Instead, it looked at the 2 tiny humans. In the dragon eyes, there was that unique red, transparent flame. "Zheng!" A clear phoenix cry, blue light flashed. Tianya flipped out from Lusweki's hand. Reflecting that figure, stepped forward, shielding Ghostly behind her, inhaling deeply, resolutely facing that terrifying existence. Black hair, still fluttering in the wind. A few strands of hair, gently fluttering in the heat wave, landed on Ghost Lee's face. Even in this purgatory like doomsday, that once familiar faint fragrance still wafted into his heart. When you are in despair, is there anyone who can accompany you? Even when there is no way out, is there anyone who has not given up? That gaze in that instant seemed to pass through time, forgetting the surrounding burning flames, seeing the past when he was young. The memories in the dark abyss seemed to be the same as today, like once again returning to that innocent time. So, this figure really had never changed? Then the person who changed, who was it? Behind the 8 wilderness fire dragon's head, that rotating, mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halo suddenly started to flicker, all kinds of strange symbols faintly discernible under the halo flashed incessantly. The 8 wilderness fire dragon's head suddenly stopped. As powerful as it seemed to be urged by something, once again let out a roar. That dragon roar, like a tsunami, surged over. In that instant, all of the remaining rocks on the ground, in the violent tremors, rapidly melted into lava. In just a moment, under Ghost Lee and Lusweki's feet, was a scorching sea of lava. And following the 8 wilderness fire dragon's long roar, that sea of lava, from its original disorderly surging, in a blink of an eye, as if being pulled by a huge force, started to flow rapidly towards the same direction. The lava current surged faster and faster, the scorching gas rising up, turning this stone room into a real lava hell. Very soon, the 2 huge force pulled out a huge whirlpool in this sea of lava. The scarlet flame that could destroy everything burned fiercely like a high-tide carnival dance. The whirlpool became bigger and bigger, sinking deeper and deeper. The roar that was pulled by the rushing torrent slowly came from the depths of the whirlpool, like thunder, gradually becoming louder and louder. In the end, it was deafening, even overshadowing the roar of the 8 wilderness fire dragon in midair. When the rapidly spinning lava had almost reached the point of madness, that huge whirlpool, which was several feet wide, came from deep within the whirlpool, accompanied by a deafening roar. Boom! In an instant, the sky and earth shook. From the huge whirlpool shot out a blazing pillar, completely made of lava, as thick as 10 people hugging together, with unparalleled power, rushing towards Lusweki and Ghostly, who seemed so weak and insignificant compared to it, sweeping everything, looking down on the world, as if this was the true, unparalleled power. The power of fire, the essence of fire. Before the lava pillar arrived, Lusweki and Ghostly even felt that their bodies were empty. Just a moment ago, the last corner of the stone wall that they were leaning on, under the crazy torment of the power, turned into rubble and scattered, and what appeared behind them was not a sturdier stone wall. It was actually gradually cracking and revealing the scarlet lava, slowly melting the rocks. And above them was the 8 wilderness fire dragon. Surrounding them was a sea of crazily burning fire. Under their feet was the irresistible lava pillar rushing towards them. In the fire, in the panting, what was it that was trembling slightly? What was it that made their hands hold, unwilling to let go, tightly connected? That sword, like a distant singing from the horizon, with a faint blue light from 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years ago, all the way until today, for the one she loved, stabbed forward. Wind and fire roared. She was like a fairy who threw herself into the fire. Her white figure suddenly bloomed in the fire, such a bright and unparalleled beauty, forgetting everything in the world, only the edge of her hand, that never-forgotten gentleness and firmness, accompanied her. What was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? That sword. Her figure moved forward, dancing in the wind with a peerless grace. Behind her was a low chanting. The once ordinary fire stick, now the soul-devouring stick, came from behind, glimmering with green light, caught up with Tianya, flying at the same time with the blue sword. That figure was beside her in this despairing sea of fire, tightly clinging to each other. Tianya's celestial sword trembled slightly. The brilliance on the sword blade pierced through the innumerable heat waves and winds, as if reflecting. The soul-devouring, which was traveling with it, also made a strange, sharp cry. Green light flourished. Green, blue, two colors in the surrounding sea of fire, descended from the sky. Not only did it not evade, instead it charged towards that unstoppable lava pillar, which soared up to the sky, pierced. What was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? The fire dragon in the air suddenly roared. The dragon's long roar rumbled out unceasingly. The surrounding flames instantly surged up, as if in the midst of a wild dance, watching this end-of-the-world carnival. That two figures that seemed to have merged into one, melted in the entanglement of the green and blue light, like a meteor resolutely descended, collided with the lava pillar. What kind of brilliance was that? Like an enormous scarlet flower blossoming with a loud rumble. All of the lava sea instantly boiled and splashed up, charged up high into the air. The enormous fire pillars seemed to be wreaking havoc in this already extremely narrow place, burning everything that could be burned. Just that brilliant brilliance shot straight into the fire pillar. After a moment, but also like a long time froze, who would know? The surging lava slowly descended. The rapidly spinning lava slowly slowed down. The enormous vortex started to shrink. Only that terrible fire pillar seemed to be still in the air above the lava sea for that moment. A stream of green and blue light suddenly pierced a hole in the side of the fire pillar, shot out. The next moment, as if accompanied by deep muffled sounds, duo-do sounds, innumerable tiny holes continuously emerged. The green and blue light unceasingly spurted out. The next moment, a rumble, the enormous lava pillar collapsed, once again turned into scorching lava, fell into the lava sea below. In the air, Ghost Lee and Lu Swecky's figures reappeared. Their clothes were charred and torn, and there were even wounds on their skin in some places. Their faces, unspeakable weariness. Ghost Lee's chest and the corner of his mouth were already dyed red with fresh blood. Just that they were hugging each other, although weak, although they knew it was hopeless, but the magical weapons in their hands, Tianya and soul-absorbing stick, were emitting an unprecedented brilliant brilliance that could not be looked at directly. Their hands were still holding each other. Their bodies slowly rose into the air, once again stood before the 8 wilderness fire dragons' enormous dragon head. 2 insignificant people, facing each other, stood silently. The 8 wilderness fire dragons' burning eyes watched this pair of man and woman. From that mysterious, unfathomable flame, it was impossible to tell the fire dragon's inner thoughts. Or perhaps, with its tyrannical existence, why would it care about human emotions? That mysterious 8 ferocious deities' halos, right now, seemed to have dimmed a lot. For some reason, behind this enormous dragon's head, even these 8 ferocious deities seemed to be strenuous. Perhaps, to master a stronger power, the price to pay should also be higher. Chapter 406. From the ancient sorcerer tribe until now, how many people understood this? The 8 ferocious deities were flickering with light, and mysterious symbols were constantly flashing on them as they slowly rotated. The 8 fields fire dragon did not attack immediately. as if it was waiting for something. Ghost Lee's body, from the pain he had been enduring, finally began to tremble uncontrollably. The bloody mark on his chest grew bigger and bigger. Lu Sweki silently reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist, pulling him closer to her body. That familiar panting sound echoed softly in her ears, carrying with it a slight heat, reverberating on the edge of her pale face. It must be a little itchy. She suddenly thought so. Then, she gently turned her head, looking at him. What she saw was Ghostly looking at her. She nodded slowly, smiling softly. Ghostly stared at her for a long time. The corner of his mouth, finally, revealed a faint smile, tinged with blood. The 8 ferocious deities suddenly lit up again, and this time, besides the 8 ferocious deities, the ball of flame within the halo of the 8 ferocious deities, which had merged with the beast deity's body, also became incomparably bright for the first time, gradually overshadowing the surrounding deities. And for the first time, the entire rotating halo left the back of the 8 fields fire dragon's head, slowly sinking. The ball of raging flame, following the movement of the halo, suddenly descended on the head of the 8 fields fire dragon, slowly merging with it. The huge 8 fields fire dragon suddenly let out a furious roar, and in an instant, the entire sea of fire seemed to tremble slightly. What was it that could actually cause such a powerful creature to feel pain? That ball of flame, slowly but unstoppably, merged into the 8 fields fire dragon's head. Then, the 8 ferocious deities, which were flickering with mysterious symbols, suddenly seemed to lose their luster, and once again rapidly dimmed. The 8 fields fire dragon stopped roaring, as if lowering its head slightly. After a moment, the huge dragon had slowly lifted up again, that despairing aura of destruction, once again enveloping Ghostly and Lu Sweki. But this time, for some reason, not only was there no terrifying scene like the previous 2 attacks, but instead, the surrounding temperature dropped significantly. Although the sea of lava under their feet was still blazing hot, the flow of the lava had also slowed down. The entire infernal inferno seemed to suddenly, as if the essence of the heat was rapidly being extracted. The 8 Wildlands fire dragon finally looked at the 2 figures again. This time, its eyes were no longer burning with a mysterious red and transparent flames. Instead, it was a pair of eyes filled with the complex and crazy emotions of a human. The dragon lifted its head and opened its mouth to the sky. It seemed to be taking a deep breath. Following that movement, all the flames burning in the air seemed to have lost their light, but the pressure that enveloped Ghostly and Anan made them want to give up in despair. Suddenly, a beam of light flashed out of the 8 Wildlands fire dragon's mouth. It wasn't the light of a blazing flame, but pure flames. There was no impurities, no noise. This was the most terrifying and the world's most terrifying. The fire slowly spat out. There was not a trace of heat leaking out, only a fire pillar the size of a human, as pure as jade, flew towards Ghostly and Lu Sweki. The Tianya in Lu Sweki's hand slowly drooped down, the soul-devouring stick beside it also slowly returned to Ghostly's hand. The green-blue light slowly faded. There was no human power that could resist this irresistible pure flame. That flame, bit by bit, neared. Lu Sweki quietly looked up, but was no longer looking there. Right now in her eyes, there was only one figure, only that face. She stared deeply, a faint smile hanging on her lips, not willing to let go of a single bit, as if to carve it in her heart, into her soul, until thousands of years later, she would never be able to forget it. That flame was already nearing. Ghostly's sleeve, suddenly without any warning, instantly turned into gray powder, dispersed, and then his entire arm of clothing. And this arm, this body, how much more time did it have? Just that, he faintly thought, was he going to die just like that? Just that his wish in the end could not be fulfilled. He laughed bitterly in a low voice, clenched tightly, was that soft and gentle palm. Suddenly, that flickering flame, like a meteor bursting out, a dot of flame, suddenly flashed past his mind, in an instant chaos. Lusweki immediately felt something was wrong with Ghostly, subconsciously pulled his palm, and almost at the same time, that pure fire had already reached them, looked like it was about to engulf their bodies. Die or live. Ghostly at that moment suddenly shouted, pulled hard, abruptly pulled Lusweki's body behind him. Lusweki screamed, but had no intention of escaping alone, instead grabbed Ghostly's hand even tighter. And in that instant, in Ghostly's palm, suddenly appeared a jade like yet not jade plate, surrounded by a circle of green jade. In the middle, an ancient flame pattern. It was the Inferno Mirror. The next moment, the pure fire shot onto the Inferno Mirror. The 8 ferocious deities in the distance suddenly shook, and the enormous tyrannical 8 wilderness fire dragon, its terrifying dragon head also suddenly paused. Everything seemed to suddenly stop. Then, like a voice from a netherworld, gentle and soothing chanting, leisurely reverberated like thousands of years ago, that gentle and exquisite girl. The Inferno Mirror lit up, that simple and unadorned fire picture in the middle seemed to be reborn under the burning of the pure fire, as if it was injected with endless vitality, greedily absorbing the world's purest fire essence. Ah! Suddenly, Ghostly made a light cry. That Inferno Mirror was already so hot that he could no longer hold it. The Inferno Mirror that left his hand did not fall down, instead slowly rose into the air under the 8 wilderness fire dragons' gaze, slowly flashed. The blazing hot air slowly emitted from the Inferno Mirror, bringing with it some dreamy white smoke, as if the surrounding air had vaporized, condensed around the Inferno Mirror, a huge mysterious force, slowly tearing the surrounding space. In the white, illusory smoke, slowly condensed into a beautiful girl's figure. That was a girl dressed in simple and unadorned clothes, holding a staff in her hand, and her face was exactly the same as the Linglong, which statue guarding outside the subdued devil ancient cave. Linglong, like a heart-wrenching cry of despair, the 8 wilderness fire dragon once again revealed a pained expression, and then that ball of flame slowly separated from the dragon's head, and then the fire dissipated, revealing the beast deity's real body. Just that looking at it now, the beast deity's entire body was withered, like a lamp at the end of its oil. Just that pair of fervent eyes for thousands of years had never changed. He had forgotten everything in the world, only that girl and the smoke in his eyes. He pounced towards that illusion, his eyes filled with incomparable satisfaction. The Inferno Mirror silently spun. That Linglong illusion also seemed to be smiling, open her arms, hugging him. Seeing that, they were about to embrace each other, but behind the beast deity, suddenly, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The 8 wilderness fire dragon, who had lost its prohibition, at first glance recognized the enemy. The body that he had destroyed made it instinctively attack. Taking a deep breath, the dragon's breath lingered. Ghostly and Lusweki's countenance changed at the same time, but the beast deity seemed to have long forgotten everything around him, or, even if he knew, why would he care? He pounced over in that smoke. It was not an illusion. He actually really hugged that body. Linglong, Linglong, he softly called like a child, closed his eyes in satisfaction. Linglong smiled, used her hand to gently stroke his hair. The huge dragon roared. The angry flame instantly arrived, engulfed everything. Those 2 figures in the sea of fire slowly disappeared, but there was not the slightest sorrow. Instead, what slowly emerged was that strange happiness. In the fire, the Inferno Mirror suddenly flashed, fell straight down from the air, landed beside Ghostly's hand. In shock, Ghostly subconsciously stretched out his hand to catch it, and at the same time, where the tyrannical 8 wilderness fire dragon was, suddenly seemed to lose the support of some kind of power. That huge crack started to slowly shrink. The 8 wilderness fire dragon again made an angry roar, filled with unwillingness, but with its tyrannical strength, it seemed to be unable to stop its huge head from being engulfed by that mysterious space again. Just that at the last moment, filled with hatred to destroy everything, towards this space, it spat out its last terrifying fire. The sky fell and the earth cracked. In that instant, all of the lava boiled and exploded. The stone walls completely melted. The huge space collapsed like sand. At the same time, innumerable streams of lava shot out in all directions. Ghost Lee and Lu Sweki looked dejectedly at this doomsday scene, but had no more strength to escape. But at this moment, the Inferno mirror suddenly emitted a pure and gentle halo, enveloped the two of them, wrapped them in a light screen, swiftly rose up, and below them, everything turned into flames. The entire vast and boundless 10,000 great mountains, countless mountain ranges, seemed to at that moment heard that crazy roar. The scorched black mountain peaks that had stood for thousands of years in the raging lava gradually collapsed, and the scorching lava that shot up to the sky pierced the horizon. At the foot of this fire-like doomsday world, at the entrance of the subdued devil ancient cave, Mu was stunned and at a loss, and the ferocious black tiger instead laughed crazily, loudly shouted, "It's here, it's here! This day has finally come." Mu stared with wide eyes, angrily shouted, "Are you crazy?" The black tiger laughed crazily, but suddenly stopped. Both of their bodies shook violently at the same time, and then, in front of them, that Linglong witch statue that had guarded this subdued devil ancient cave for thousands of years, suddenly shattered, scattered into innumerable small pieces, and then engulfed by the surging heat wave, disappeared without a trace. The black tiger howled to the sky, like a madman, "Lady, lady, wait for me, I'm coming," and at its feet, Mu's heavy and intense panting. Suddenly he loudly said, "No, no, I can't be like this. I still have unfinished business." Speaking, he suddenly turned, like flying, flashed out, leaving this place that was about to be destroyed. The black tiger seemed to not care about Mu's departure. His huge body guarded the entrance of the subdued devil ancient cave, laughing crazily to the sky. Very quickly, the innumerable collapsed rocks and crazily splashing lava swallowed his figure. The earth also seemed to tremble. Innumerable ferocious beasts and birds panicked. That towering mountain peak, in the deafening roar, in the black dust that covered the sky and covered the sun, collapsed with a loud crash. The firmament in the sky slowly started to rain. Fire rain in the 10,000 great mountains. It rained for 3 days and 3 nights. Thousands of years later, who would still remember that past? Chapter 407. Funxiang Valley. In the majestic mountain river hall. Right now, it was silent, other than Li Sun and the other elite disciples who had entered that mysterious 10,000 great mountains. Most of the Funxiang Valley disciples were either patrolling in the valley or staying in their own rooms to practice and study. Rarely would they come to Funxiang Valley Main Hall. This was also the most deserted time of the day in the Mountain River Hall, except for late night. Just that at this moment, there were 2 figures standing at the entrance of the Mountain River Hall, silently standing, gazing towards the distant southern horizon. In the distant horizon, in the depths of the mysterious and dangerous Grand Myriad Mountain Range, there was an extremely enormous pillar of fire charging into the sky, and it brought along surging and roaring crimson-red lava and a thick layer of dark gray clouds with countless rock fragments mixed within it. It was sent high up into the sky by an enormous force, and then it sprayed out in all directions as if it had burst out. Even though it was far away, but they could still feel that enormous roar reverberating between heaven and earth. Even under their feet, they could faintly feel the earth trembling slightly. Thousands of miles away, it was like that. Then deep in the 10,000 great mountains were erupted. What kind of unimaginable scene would it be? No one knew. At least the 2 people standing in the Mountain River Hall right now did not know. Yun Elon's face looked very cold. For a long time, he did not even speak a word, only silently watching that enormous fire pillar which although had erupted for a long time, but did not show any signs of weakening. And the person standing behind him was his junior brother Shangwan Su. Right now, was also gazing at that enormous fire pillar, but his expression was much more complicated. The expression on his face also seemed uncertain. After a long time, in the silence, darkness quietly arrived. The sky gradually darkened. In between, a few disciples passed by, but very quickly realized that the atmosphere was not right and quickly retreated. Till the end, as the last ray of light of the dusk gradually disappeared. Even if one raised one's eyes and gazed afar, that strange scene in the distant horizon also slowly became blurry. Far away, in a corner of Funxiang Valley, low cries of insects sounded, intermittent, sometimes near and sometimes far, not knowing what it was calling out to, but it set off the huge mountain river hall, the coldness like ice and snow. Yin Elon's body in the shadows moved and then slowly turned around. Shangguan silently looked at him. Yin Elon's eyes met his for a moment, and then, for some reason, turned away, slowly turned, and walked into the mountain river hall. Shangguan secretly sighed in his heart, took one last look at the southern horizon, also turned and walked in. The muffled sound of footsteps reverberated in the silent mountain river hall, yet it seemed so loud and clear. Whose heart did the heavy footsteps tread on? Yin Elon sat on the seat in the middle of the great hall, slowly sat down. The sky was dark, but there were no lights here. Not that Funxiang Valley disciples were lazy, just that this night seemed to be different. They all tactfully did not come. Yin Elon sat in the darkness. His face looked blurry. After a long while, he suddenly said, "Can't believe there's really someone in this world who can destroy the subdue devil ancient cave, can kill that evildoer." Shangguan sat down below Yin Elon. Although he was Yin Elon's junior brother, but looking at his face, he looked much older than Yin Elon. Just that right now his voice seemed more normal than Yin Elon. Indifferently said, "That day Qing Yun's sect Daoxian could seriously injure the beast deity. Now that someone can think of a way to kill the beast deity is not too surprising." Yin Elon was silent for a long time, did not speak, but after a long while he suddenly gave a bitter laugh, shook his head and said, "Man proposes, but God disposes. 100 years of hard work, just like that, all in vain." Shangguan pondered for a moment, seemed to be secretly considering how to speak, slowly said, "Maybe there are other ways in the Funxiang Jade book." Yin Elon snorted. Shangguan immediately shut up. The atmosphere turned slightly awkward, but Yin Elon was obviously in a bad mood, did not have the slightest intention to ease the atmosphere, only sat there quietly, not making a sound. Shangguan's aged face, the wrinkles seemed to deepen in the darkness, his eyes glimmering with a complicated glint, but nobody knew what he was thinking. After a long while, Yin Elon suddenly called out, "Shangguan, junior brother." Shangguan was stunned, said, "What?" Yin Elon indifferently said, "Others may not understand, but our Funxiang Valley secret, only you and I are most clear. Why did our founder want to establish our sect in the southern border Funxiang Valley, this desolate place? You should know, right?" Shangguan sighed. His voice carried a trace of vicissitudes, said, "It is because our founder discovered the ancient southern border shaman tribe's remains, Inferno altar, and from there discovered the strange and powerful shaman secret." Yin Elon slowly nodded, said, "That's right. It is because of that Funxiang Valley then took root and sprouted in the southern border desolate place, opened its doors and continued until today. The ancient shaman tribe's various mysterious shaman skills, in addition to the true skills passed down by our generations of founders. Then we have our Funxiang Valley today's status and prestige." Speaking to here, Yin Elon's voice suddenly carried a trace of desolation, said, "But in these hundreds of years, even though the generations of ancestors exhausted their painstaking efforts, but among the southern border ancient shaman clans, shaman spells, the strongest power, heaven fire, we still only grasp the surface." His expression gradually became angry, said coldly, "That day when I inherited the Valley Master position, I made a solemn vow in front of our generations of founders that we must discover the shaman tribe Heaven Fire's secret and let our Funxiang Valley dominate the world, lead the masses. But I didn't expect that not only that, even the only key to explore the power of Heaven Fire, the 8 savage Inferno formations map passed down by the shaman tribe, was destroyed. What's more, even the most important Inferno mirror was lost. In the darkness, Shangwan's body suddenly shook. Pa! A crisp sound was heard from beside Yun Elon. In his anger, his hand exerted strength and actually twisted the chair's armrest off. In the hall, it was silent for a moment. After a long while, Yun Elon suddenly heaved a long sigh. Slowly stood up, his tone desolate, said, "That day in the difficult situation by chance from the southern border ancient books, I found out that other than the Inferno altar, there's still that subdued devil ancient cave, which still has a diagram. Therefore I had to ask a tiger for its skin. Today's matter, a pity I." He let out a long sigh, an indescribable exhaustion on his face. Outside the desolate Shanhe Hall, other than the low cries of the insects, there were no other sounds. Those Fun Xiang Valley disciples, most of them had peacefully fallen asleep. Who would know, in this kind of night, there were two old people quietly sitting in the Shanhe Hall. Yun Elon seemed to be extremely unsettled today. His usual composure was nowhere to be seen. His thoughts revealed, appeared distraught, paced back and forth for quite a while. Finally, after a long sigh, shook his head with a bitter smile, did not say anything, quietly walked towards the rear hall. Shangwan's sat at a spot and did not move, watching as Yun Elon's figure was about to disappear into the dark rear hall. Shangwan's eyes suddenly flashed, as if in hesitation. He finally made a decision and stood up. "Senior brother." Yun Elon paused, turned around, faintly said, "What is it?" Shangwan slowly, as if every word was carefully thought over, said, "I have carefully thought about it. This matter may still have hope." Yun Elon's eyebrows raised, said, "What did you say?" Shangwan seemed to feel his mouth was dry. His throat moved, unhurriedly said, "Now the two known places that still have the 8 savage Inferno sect formation, Inferno altar and subdued devil ancient cave, are already destroyed. If we want to delve into the mystery of heaven fire from this formation, I'm afraid the future is bleak." Yun Elon snorted, said, "That's right. Then what do you say?" Shangwan was silent for a moment, said, "I am thinking the formation is a dead object after this path is blocked. Maybe we can start from the people." Yun Elon was a little impatient, said, "What people? How would they know?" Suddenly, his eyes suddenly brightened. His expression turned solemn. After a moment of silence, slowly said, "You are saying after the subdued devil ancient cave collapsed, the southern border shaman tribe will still have survivors?" Shangwan inhaled deeply, as if a heavy burden was pressing on his chest, but after a moment, he still said, "I'm not completely sure now, but according to my conjecture, after everything in the subdued devil ancient cave is annihilated, one of the few non-human, non-demon shaman tribe survivors, I'm afraid one of them, might not be willing to perish together with them like this." Chapter 408. He slowly raised his head, his voice somehow bitter, said, "If I am not wrong, this person may survive. If so, this person will be the one in this world who knows the most about the ancient shaman tribe shaman skills. From him, we may be able to gain something, who knows." Yun Elon silently pondered, but his expression slowly became cheerful and focused. After a long while, he suddenly nodded and said, "Not bad. Junior brother, you're really insightful. Although this matter does not have much hope, but it is better than despair. Since it is so, I will have to trouble you to make a trip to the 10,000 Great Mountains, mainly to investigate this matter, and at the same time to see how Sunner and the rest are." This time he met with great changes. It was not something that could be predicted. It has been hard on him. Shangwan silently sighed in his heart, stood up, nodded and said yes. Yun Elon glanced at him, suddenly smiled and said, "Junior brother, just now my mood was not good. Maybe my tone was wrong. Don't take it to heart." Shangwan shook his head, said, "Senior brother, what are you saying? I won't." Yun Elon smiled and nodded, then turned and walked into the rear hall of the hall, disappearing into the shadows. In the huge mountain river hall, there was only a lonely shadow left, standing silently. The darkness quietly surged over, swallowing his figure. Southern border, 10,000 Great Mountains. The deafening roars that reverberated between heaven and earth, the volcano roars that shook the earth, finally, after 3 days and 3 nights of crazy eruptions, slowly weakened. The doomsday-like rain of fire unknowingly stopped, just that on the countless mountains, rivers, and earth, there were burn marks everywhere. Gazing afar, as if there were still innumerable fireheads burning on this miserable land. Just that, the black clouds in the horizon eventually dispersed, once again casting down a warm glow, illuminating this piece of land. Even though standing far away, the air was still filled with a trace of irritable sulfuric burnt smell, but at this time, the light breeze that blew down from the horizon had more of a fresh smell. Everything would eventually end. Everything seemed to be starting anew. The sun and moon revolved, shuttled back and forth. The stars moved. Who had seen the vicissitudes of the world? The stars twinkled, the bright moon rising. The night wind blew gently, and the trees rustled. The tranquil night quietly descended upon this place. With a low moan, like a sleeping baby, she subconsciously stretched out her hand. What did she grab? It was warm skin and a stable place. It was right beside her, solid and never leaving. A faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, as if she had obtained some gratification from her dream. In the night, under the starlight, a light breeze blew quietly. Her hair was a little messy, and a few strands of black hair fluttered in the night wind, falling on her jade-like cheeks. She gently furrowed her eyebrows. Her expression was as innocent as a child's. It was so beautiful amidst the chaos, but it seemed to slowly seep into the depths of her soul. Ghostly silently stared at this sleeping face. She was just beside him, as if she had never been so close before. She slept quietly, breathing in the fresh night air of the southern border. As the wind blew, her chest rose and fell slowly. Her lips curled into a slight smile. He suddenly raised his head and saw that the bright moon had moved to the middle of the sky, emitting a gentle and warm radiance that illuminated the world. The moonlight was like water sprinkling on their bodies. Clothes like snow, people like Jade. This was a cliff on the highest peak of the 10,000 Great Mountains, towering about 1 zhang above the mountain peak. Because it was far from the subdued Devil Ancient Cave, the huge volcanic eruption caused by the collapse of the cave did not affect this place much. Only some of the flames from the rain of fire and some lava from the rubble ignited a few fires, but they all quickly subsided. And on the high cliff, one could still vaguely see the place where the madness happened, but only countless ashes remained. The two people in that desperate situation, after being rescued by the spiritual divine object Inferno Mirror, because they were too exhausted, they quickly fainted. And when Ghostly woke up again, he found himself and Lu Sweki on this cliff. After the hustle and bustle, it was a calm and cool night. Suddenly, a light exclamation was heard beside him. He turned his head to look. That beautiful girl in her sleep, after a faint smile, slowly opened her eyes. That pair of clear, gentle eyes that reflected his silhouette suddenly, as if heaven and earth had stopped. Deep in his soul, a certain place quietly cracked. Then, after gazing deeply into his eyes, she smiled faintly with a hint of shyness. That smile, like in the darkness of a night, a delicate and beautiful lily, for a long time, but also seemed to be a short moment. That time had lost its meaning. Who would care? Ghostly also smiled, a gentle smile. That smile seemed to be that young man from that time. She stretched out her hand, wanting to hold his hand and never let go, but realized both of their hands were already held together, never separated. A faint blush flashed across her face. Slowly, she sat up. Her clothes slid down. It was Ghost Lee's coat covering her body. She glanced at Ghostly, but did not say anything, just that at the corner of her lips, that quiet smile seemed to deepen again. The night breeze blew gently, like a gentle hand brushing past the body. Far away, in the forest on the mountain peak, waves of rustling reverberated in the night. Lu Sweki looked around. Not far from them, at the edge of the cliff, Lu Sweki's Tanya's celestial sword was inserted into the rocks. The sword blade, like autumn water, stood erect in the night breeze, and beside Tianya, Ghostly's soul-absorbing stick was also quietly lying on the ground. Two magical weapons, right now, seemed to be so quiet. Who knew what kind of past they had? The indistinct green light on the soul-absorbing stick glimmered, and Tinya's light blue light intertwined, this pair of magical weapons that have been entangled for thousands of years. Right now, looking at them, seemed to have some signs of complementing each other. Suddenly, a low roar was heard from behind. The two of them turned around. Suddenly, a huge figure flashed past from the depths of the forest. It was the evil beast Taotai that followed beside the beast deity that day. It sounded a little restless, but very soon, a familiar "Viji" sound was heard, as if comforting it. After a moment, Taotai, quietened down, no longer made a sound. The two of them turned and looked at each other. Ghostly hesitated slightly, said, "That is Taotai. I am here because of it. Tomorrow I should be—" Suddenly, he didn't continue speaking, because at this time, a white and soft hand gently covered his mouth. He instantly turned silent. His body seemed to tremble slightly. The night breeze blew over faintly, brushing her hair. Her eyes, in such a night, seemed to be blurred. However, the smile at the corner of his mouth never disappeared. Lu Sweki only smiled, stared deeply at him. This man who had haunted her countless times in her dreams. After a long time, gently, quietly said, "Don't worry about tomorrow, all right?" The moonlight, like ice and snow, fell into the world. Ghostly stared at her in a daze, looking at her peerless face and gentle smile, looking at the persistence and faint sorrow behind that smile. The night breeze was still blowing, her hair draped over her shoulders, gently fluttering, and a faint fragrance drifted in the wind. Her figure, at this moment, was so frail, but that kind of beauty, as if the countless vicissitudes of the world had never been erased. Don't worry about tomorrow, all right? Bright moon, innumerable stars. The night was boundless. He quietly held her hand, held it in his palm. Under the endless firmament, who would care about this world's tiny happiness? Her frail body seemed to tremble gently in the night breeze, secretly throbbing feelings, as if wandering in a long river of time for thousands of years. Above the horizon, was there someone smiling and looking afar? Was it joy? Was it pain? Never mind, what was tomorrow? What would be tomorrow? Why care? Embrace into my arms. Hold you, embrace me gently in my arms. Chapter 409. Qingyan Hill, Small Bamboo Valley. The night was dark, the firmament like dark ink solidified, only indistinctly the thick dark clouds slowly moving in the sky. From that boundless darkness, rain fell silently. Further away in the horizon, thunder rumbled indistinctly, not knowing if there would be an even more violent storm coming soon. The Qingyun sect disciples who went to the southern border had already returned for several days. Among them Anan, after meeting the sect elders, returned to Small Bamboo Valley and never appeared again. Even the undercurrents caused by Reverend Daoxian and Tian Bai's mysterious disappearance in Qingyun's sect, as if she did not notice. The precipitous and beautiful Small Bamboo Valley was still as tranquil as it had been for thousands of years. The tall bamboos all over the mountains and plains in this stormy night were still making low, rustling sounds, silently watching the people at the top of the hill. The green lantern in the small house, the candlelight glowing. The door was gently closed, the window was still half open. The mountain storm came quietly. Raindrops flew into the house from time to time, wetting the bamboo windowsill, slowly condensed into water droplets, quietly slid down, leaving trails of watermarks. The wind, blowing from afar, gently shook the window in this silent rainy night, emitting a soft Jia sound. The candlelight placed on the table in the house swayed, flickering. Several times it looked like it was going to be blown out, but always in the struggle, persevered until the mountain wind weakened, slowly regained its brightness, once again brightened. In the night, there was no other light. Places slightly far from this little candle were shrouded in shadows. Lu Sweki sat under the lamp, silently looking at the candle flame. Green lantern, beauty, in such a night, seemed to congeal into an unshakable melancholy, silently engraved in time, but not knowing how much time could be retained. Outside the door, light footsteps sounded from afar. Anan's head moved slightly. A gust of mountain breeze blew in from the window. The candle on the table swayed and wavered. Her beautiful hair also gently fluttered with the wind. The door emitted a low sound, was pushed open. The wind and rain outside the house suddenly became louder, as if the wind suddenly became stronger and was about to rush into the house. Fortunately, after that moment, the person had already entered the house, turned around, and closed the door, also cutting off the wind and rain outside the house, returning peace to the house. Lou Swecky stood up, slightly lowered her head, said, "Senior sister, why are you here?" It was Wen Min. She glanced at Lou Swecky, walked to the table, sighed, and said, "Ever since you returned to the mountain, it's rare to see you out of this room. If I don't come to see you, I'm afraid I don't even know how you are now." Lou Swecky looked up at Wen Min, saw senior sister with a smile on her lips, her eyes gentle, clearly full of concern. She chuckled and said, "How could anything happen to me? Thank you for your concern, senior sister." Wen Min looked at her for a long time, saw that other than Lou Swecky's face slightly pale, her expression was normal. She then slowly relaxed and said, "Junior sister, it's good that you are fine, but as an elder sister, seeing you like this, my heart is really distressed. Besides that, after you returned to the mountain, you only saw Master once that day, and then you shut yourself in this small house and never went to see her again. No matter what, you can't blame Master in your heart. After all, we were all raised by her." Lou Swecky shook her head, said, "Senior sister, what are you saying? I definitely do not dare to have the slightest intention to blame teacher. I did not dare to pay my respect to teacher. It is only because I know I am unworthy, afraid to make teacher angry and upset." Wen Min was stunned, looked at Lou Swecky. After a long time, her expression was complicated. Her words stopped, only sighed softly and stood up. At this moment in the distant horizon, suddenly a flash of lightning streaked across, followed by a sound of thunder, abruptly sounded, the sound like tearing silk but seemed to reverberate above their heads. The echo lingered in spirals, lingering for a long time. Outside the house, the wind seemed to be getting stronger. Wen Min frowned, walked to the window, looked out, and said, "Look at the sky. It seems the rain is going to get heavier." Lou Swecky stood up, also slowly walked to the window, stood beside Wen Min, looked out. In the night, two slender figures stood side by side, watching the heavy night and the endless wind and rain. Far away, rustling bamboo leaves, the sound of rain hitting bamboo leaves, was faintly heard. For a moment, not knowing if it was quiet, in this silence, both of them were speechless. After a long time, Wen Min inhaled deeply, smiled, and said, "Speaking of which, we have not watched the rain together for a long time, right?" Lou Swecky's lips revealed a trace of a smile, said, "Yes, actually I also remember when I came up the mountain as a child. At the beginning it was senior sister who took care of me. At that time I was not sensible. Every night there was a storm. When the thunder roared, I was especially afraid." She slowly turned her head, her eyes filled with gentleness, quietly said, "Every time it was senior sister you who brought me, sat by the window watching the rain, and told me not to be afraid." Wen Min shook her head and laughed, stretched out her hand and gently caressed Lou Swecky's soft long hair on her shoulder, suddenly sighed and said, "In a blink of an eye, you have already grown up." Lou Swecky felt Wen Min's palm, gently patted on her shoulder, as if from there was some warmth. After a moment of silence, Lou Swecky looked at her senior sister, said, "Senior sister, if you have anything to say, just say it to me." Wen Min was stunned for a moment, in the end smiled bitterly, and said, "I know you have always been exceptionally intelligent. Nothing can be hidden from you." She paused for a moment, said, "Junior sister, actually with your intelligence, far surpasses me, this elder sister, but why can't you see through it, can't comprehend it, in vain suffering in your heart?" The smile on Lou Swecky's lips slowly disappeared. Replacing it was a familiar, indifferent expression, just that, facing Wen Min, she no longer had that cold feeling. "I am not suffering." Lou Swecky stared at the night sky outside the window, quietly said. Wen Min looked over in shock. Lou Swecky's eyes drifted far away. not knowing where she was looking at in this deep night. But her tone could not be clearer. I have never suffered, senior sister. Ever since the sect preached, it is for us to have no worries, to be at ease, to comprehend creation, to seek immortality. Isn't it? One Min nodded, said, That's right. Actually, in terms of cultivation, our Taoist and Buddhist sect have some similarities. Lu Sweki gently held onto the bamboo sill. A gust of cold wind blew over. She seemed to feel cold. Her body shrank a little, but she still stood. On her fair palms, very quickly crystal clear water droplets condensed. But what do I want immortality for? One Min slightly opened her mouth, her brows frowning. I know, for thousands of years in Qin Yun's sect, these teachings passed down by the founders definitely will not be wrong. Us mortals wish to escape reincarnation. Through cultivation, perhaps we can achieve immortality. In the past, I also thought so wholeheartedly cultivated. Just that now? Lu Sweki quietly smiled, as if speaking to her own heart, said, If I am to be heartless and loveless for the rest of my life, to have a heart like a blank piece of paper and ascend to immortality, then this kind of immortality, how can it be what I want? One Min stammered, Junior sister, what exactly are you saying? As if she did not hear One Min's words, Lu Sweki continued. I know what you are thinking in your heart, senior sister. Most likely you are scolding me for not understanding the ways of the world, not knowing the hardships and dangers of this world. What I wish for in my heart, most of it will be difficult to have an outcome. Actually, how would I not know? If talking about suffering in the heart, I have indeed suffered because of this. Just that now, I have thought it through. Others say that the world cannot tolerate unforgivable, and I ultimately cannot be like him, break away from home and become a monk. But even so, I only wish that there is one person in my heart that I can yearn for. And I also know he also has me in his heart. As long as it is like this, I'm also satisfied. One Min snorted, said, Don't you know, in the end there will not be an outcome? Don't tell me you don't care about this. Lu Sweki's face, for the first time, changed expression, as if that deep gloom quietly flashed past. After a long while, she then quietly said, Of course I care if it is possible. Who does not wish to be together forever? Who does not wish to be together forever? Just that I know it will be difficult to achieve, so I will not think about it. Anyway, what will happen in the future? Who knows? I will not be willing to forget. One Min looked deeply at this elegant lady in front of her. In the night, she was as beautiful and elegant as a lily blooming in loneliness. She sighed softly, said, Anyway, I already knew I would not be able to persuade you. Tomorrow morning, you can go and see teacher. Lu Sweki was surprised, turned her head, said, Although it is not that I am unwilling to pay my respects to teacher, but if I go, most likely I will make her angry again. One Min shook her head and said, Today it is teacher who privately asked me to come and call you. It is for official matters, don't worry. Lu Sweki hesitated for a moment, said, The southern border trip, the beast deity is dead. The good faction's greatest threat is gone. What else is there? One Min hesitated for a moment, said, It is the evil faction's resurgence. Lu Sweki's body shook. At the same time, a complicated and incomprehensible look flashed in her eyes, said, What? Seeing Lu Sweki's unusual expression, One Min sighed in her heart, but her mouth still calmly said, Recently rumors have been spreading. The evil faction traitors who were defeated by the beast deity in the beast deity calamity actually still have remnants and seem to have the intention to make a comeback. And our Qin Yun sect is currently facing internal and external troubles. Teacher seems to be deeply worried. You know, she has always valued you the most likely because of this matter she called you over. Lu Sweki was silent for a long time, nodded and said, Yes, then I will go and pay my respects to teacher tomorrow morning. Chapter 410. One Min nodded, said, Then you should also rest early. I am leaving. Lu Sweki did not stay any longer. Center to the door, One Min suddenly paused, turned and looked at Lu Sweki, said, Junior sister, in future if you have any problems, don't keep it in your heart. If you trust me as your sister, just tell me. It is better than keeping it in your heart. Lu Sweki slowly nodded, quietly said, Yes, senior sister, I know. Wunmin looked at her expression, expected that although she agreed, but with Lu Swecky's character, most likely even if she had any difficulties, she would not say it. She could only laugh bitterly, turned and left. Leaning on the door, she watched Wunmin leave. Lu Swecky slowly looked away, saw the night as dark as ink, wind and rain howling, heaven and earth silent, as if revealing a sense of desolation. For a moment she was in a daze. After a long, long time, as if she woke up from a dream, quietly turned and gently closed the door. Heaven and earth, wind and rain were also shut outside, just like what Qing Yun's sect had secretly received. 1,000 miles away at majestic Fox Mountain, the once deserted mountain suddenly became bustling with noise and excitement. Large batches of evil sect disciples returned to Ghost King's sect. The once sealed mechanisms were activated. The abandoned sentry posts, under the orderly command, were restored one by one. On a sunny day, the last branch of the evil sect, also the most powerful branch at the moment, Ghost King's sect, under the leadership of Ghost King, returned to the Central Plains. Big and small parcels, an endless long queue, like a group of ants returning to their nest. And in this queue, the most eye-catching was every few zhongs. There were hundreds of evil faction disciples escorting a huge object covered with thick gray cloth, forming a huge square shape, and under the cloth, from time to time, a shocking deep roar was heard. The roar was filled with ferocity and anger, but for some reason, most of the roars sounded weak, as if it was some kind of extremely exhausted monster. This huge, mysterious object very soon was transported by these evil sect disciples who seemed to be familiar with the route, into the huge cave that Ghost King sect had been managing for generations. In the air, only the low echoes of the unknown monster's cries and howls. At the same time, in the wind, for some reason, a strange stench of blood gradually rose from the surroundings, drifted in the wind. Ghost King clasped his hands behind, stood at the side of the cave, watching the last mysterious giant being transported into the depths of the cave, his face expressionless. At a glance, he seemed to have not changed at all, other than the hair on his temples, which had turned white because of his daughter, had grown more. Behind him stood two figures. One was Yuji, still in that black veil mask, silent. The other was shrouded in black shadows. It was Mr. Ghost. When almost all the evil faction disciples had entered this cave, very soon a few of them ran up and reported to Ghost King in a low voice. Ghost King listened in silence and did not say anything, only nodded his head slowly. Those evil faction disciples quickly dispersed. Under the silent command, the huge stone mechanism at the cave entrance slowly fell down, blocking the light from the outside world outside. Ghost King in the darkness gently exhaled. This familiar cave smell. In the deep and serene cave tunnel, lights slowly lit up. That was the evil sect disciples one by one lighting the torches hanging above the tunnel. Under the familiar faint yellow light, the shadows also started to waver. Behind, Yuji slowly stepped forward, softly said, "Sect head, do you want to go and see Ghostly?" Ghost King's eyes seemed to flash, said, "After I returned, I have not seen him. Where is he?" Yuji quietly said, "He has always been at Bai Yao's place." Ghost King, who was about to stride forward, paused for a moment. After a moment, said, "I will go over. All of you do not need to follow." Yuji acknowledged, watched Ghost King walking into the distance, until that figure disappeared. She turned back and was shocked. That mysterious figure beside her had unknowingly disappeared. Under the black veil, Yuji's willowy brows slowly frowned, her eyes glinting with a complicated expression. Outside the cold stone chamber deep in the mountain cave, the bustling scene was completely different from the outside. There was no clamor here. It was still as quiet as before. Maybe in some people's eyes, this place should be more of loneliness. Ghost King stood outside the cold stone chamber for a long time, facing that stone door. For some reason, he did not stretch out his hand to open it. The heavy stone door was in front of him, but his gaze seemed to have penetrated this indestructible stone. Behind the stone door, where the cold air was thick, his daughter was still lying peacefully. Such a strong person like him. Would there also be a moment of weakness, unwilling to face his own daughter. Not knowing how long, time quietly passed. Ghost King's body moved, slowly stretched out his hand, activated the mechanism. A deep, deep rumble was heard. The stone door in front of him slowly opened. A gush of cold air from behind the stone door, faint wisps of white gas, drifted in the stone chamber. Ghost King strode in. The stone door behind him closed again. Everything had not changed. That quietly lying figure even included that man in his memory who was always sitting at the side. Ghostly did not turn back. Even if he took a glance, he was still looking at Bai Yao. And Ghost King also did not speak, quietly walked to the other side of the cold stone platform, stared at his daughter. Bai Yao was still calm with a satisfied smile, quietly lying down. Her hands were crossed in front of her, and the magical falcon treasure, the Hehuan bell, was quietly resting in her palm. The faint, golden radiance seemed to be refracted from the body of the Hehuan bell, emitting light of different lengths. In the silent stone room, for some reason, it always gave people an illusion, as if there was a low, reverberating, clear ringing of the bell. But listening carefully, there was no trace of it, only the faint radiance of the bell, like a gentle eye, watching the two men in the stone room. These days when I was not here, how is she? Ghost King indifferently said. His gaze, since entering the stone chamber, had always been on his daughter. Ghostly slowly looked up, looked at Ghost King. Ghost King also looked away from Bai Yao, looked at Ghostly. The two men's gazes met in the air like a soundless storm and thunder. Between them, in Bai Yao's hand, the light on the Hehuan bell gently circulated. She is very well. Ghostly stood up, faintly said. Ghost King nodded, said, With you here I am very assured. He paused, and said, This time you went to southern border. Did you find any news about soul return unusual skill? A trace of sadness flashed past Ghostly's face, shook his head. Ghost King was silent, looked down at Bai Yao, softly sighed. Actually, this time, Ghost Li's trip to southern border. The main purpose was naturally to track the beast deity and to receive Ghost King's secret order to capture the strange beast Taotai beside the beast deity. But right now, both of them were conversing, seemed to have forgotten about this matter. In the stone chamber, another period of silence. At the end, Ghost King's face turned solemn, faintly said, I still have something to tell you, but this place is not suitable. Let's go out. Ghostly nodded, did not say much. For the last time he looked at Bai Yao. For some reason, a trace of guilt flashed past his eyes. He casually turned and walked out. Ghost King followed behind him, walked out of the stone door. The heavy stone door slowly descended, once again cutting off the silence. In the huge cold stone chamber, only the faint light from the Hehuan bell was left. Two men walked side by side in the spacious tunnel. Along the way, the evil sect disciples they met all retreated to the sides, bowed their heads in greeting. Footsteps lightly reverberated. After a few turns, both of them came to Ghost Li's residence. Ghost King glanced at Ghostly, seemed to sense something. Ghostly frowned slightly, but did not look at Ghost King. After a slight hesitation, he stretched out his hand to open the door. Both of them walked in. Ho. Xiao Hui's familiar cries, accompanied by a few strange cries. The Taotai, who was once the strange beast that followed beside the beast deity, right now was lying on the floor in Ghost Li's room, just that it looked dispirited and lethargic with its bell-like big eyes closed, motionless lying on the floor. Instead, the monkey Xiao Hui was still as energetic as usual, jumping around the Taotai, touching left and right, sometimes pulling the Taotai's tail, sometimes patting the Taotai's head, and even more, occasionally stretching its hand to the Taotai's bloody mouth, pulling it open, looking somewhat curious to peek inside. Looking at Xiao Hui, it seemed like it wanted to make the Taotai more energetic to play together, but obviously it had no effect on the Taotai. After Ghost King and Ghostly walked in, the Taotai turned a blind eye to them, still lying lazily on the floor. The monkey Xiao Hui gave a cry of joy, jumped up Ghostly's body in 2 or 3 leaps, crouched on its master's shoulder. Ghostly stroked Xiao Hui's head, indifferently said to Ghost King, This is it. Ghost King did not speak, only watched the Taotai lying on the floor. At the corner of his lips, a faint smile slowly revealed. Just that in the smile, there was an additional trace of unfathomable meaning. Chapter 411. Ghost King walked towards the Taotai, his steps steady and peaceful. Xiao Hui, who was sitting on Ghost Li's shoulder, turned its head, looked at Ghost King's back, called out twice, and suddenly quietened down. Taotai, who was lying on the ground, seemed to have sensed something. Its huge head moved to one side, lifted up. Its huge eyes also opened. Two beams of ominous glint instantly landed on the Ghost King, who was walking over. A burst of low and deep roar faintly reverberated from its big mouth. Oh! The originally peaceful and tranquil atmosphere in the room suddenly became inexplicably tense. The iron-like hard armor on the back of the Taotai's head tensed up piece by piece. Its big mouth slowly opened, revealing terrifying and sharp teeth. Ghost King faced this terrifying beast, but there was not the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, with his back facing Ghost Li, his eyes kept flickering with a strange light, in which there was an unconcealable ecstasy and desire. He faced the already enraged Taotai beast, did not even stop his steps. And behind him, Ghost Li watched his back, his brows already frowning slightly. The Taotai obviously could not tolerate such provocation. Revealed its ferocious look, its huge eyes gradually turned red, its huge body slowly stood up, assuming an attacking stance. And Ghost King, on the other hand, seemed to completely disregard the beast's reaction. All of his attention was only focused on observing the situation around the Taotai. Finally, when Ghost King neared the Taotai, 1 foot within 3 chi of it, the Taotai, as expected, could no longer endure. With a wild roar, immediately shook the surrounding stone walls faintly. Its huge body abruptly leapt up, brandished its claws, pouncing towards Ghost King. In the originally tranquil stone room, a violent gale abruptly followed that huge body. The originally neatly arranged tables and chairs were instantly blown away. Pung, 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 a few sounds smashed onto the wall, broke into a few pieces. In the blink of an eye, the huge beast body had already pounced on Ghost King's head. In the distance, the monkey Xiao Hui let out a few cries, "Zhizhi," but it did not sound like it was worried. On the contrary, it seemed to be gloating, as if this intelligent monkey did not have a good impression of the Ghost King, who was currently in danger, and could not wait for Taotai to slap that guy to death. But Ghost Li's view was obviously not the same as Xiao Hui. His originally frowning brows, right now, after an imperceptible doubt flashed in his eyes, his frown deepened, as if in his eyes, in that instant, he saw something that he did not expect. The huge body pounced down with a violent wind. The momentum was astonishing, but in just a moment, like a ghost, the body of the Ghost King suddenly disappeared into thin air from the impossible place. Taotai's powerful attack only ended up with the result of hitting nothing but air. The next moment, Ghost King's gray figure suddenly appeared, behind the stunned Taotai, stretched out his hand, like lightning grabbed the flesh on the back of Taotai's neck. Looking at him, it seemed like he wanted to use his own powers to pick up this beast that everyone feared, like a domestic kitten or puppy. This grab did not look fast, but the Taotai was unable to avoid it. A low roar. The Taotai's neck was already restrained. Just that the Taotai was after all a strange beast. Under the restraint, it did not have any intention of yielding. Instead, it seemed to become angrier, roared continuously. The metal skin on its body immediately tightened. Its entire body seemed to have expanded by more than 3 times. Ghost King's countenance changed. At the same time, he felt a stinging pain in his right hand. The palm that was protected by the evil sect True Way seemed to be unable to withstand this strange beast's power. Ghost King did not hesitate. After releasing his hand, he retreated 3 steps. Ghost Li and Xiao Hui stood at the side, saw clearly. The metal skin on the back of the Taotai's neck, which was originally impervious to swords and spears, had 5 bloody red claw marks, and the wounds did not look shallow. Blood was already slowly flowing out. The Taotai raised its head and roared, already in a berserk state, abruptly turned around and faced Ghost King. And Xiao Hui, who was lying on Ghost Li's shoulder, at this moment also leapt up, both of its hands waving wildly, pointing at Ghost King and calling out, looking extremely enraged, although no one in this stone chamber knew the monkey language, but without asking, the monkey language that Xiao Hui was speaking, most of it was cursing and swearing at Ghost King. Xiao Hui scolded a few times, but seemed to not have vented its hatred. With a leap, it was about to jump down, looked like it wanted to help its friend, to teach this hateful Ghost King a lesson. Just that its body had just leapt into the air, suddenly a hand stretched out from behind, grabbed Xiao Hui, and forcefully pulled it back. It was Ghost Li. Xiao Hui was somewhat surprised and also somewhat angry, called out to Ghost Li incessantly. Ghost Li turned a deaf ear, only frowning tightly. Watching the scene, Xiao Hui had only called out a few words and suddenly turned its head, clearly attracted by something in the scene. The Tao Tai's deafening roar. Its huge body with sharp fangs pounced towards Ghost King. And this time Ghost King did not have the intention to dodge, only raise his arm. A dark red light streaked past from Ghost King's sleeve. Silently but instantly a faint smell of blood filled the entire stone chamber. An even deeper and strange roar in the unseen nothingness burst out. There was no sound of silk tearing, but it seemed to tear the space in this stone chamber. Even the Tao Tai's earth-shattering roar was also silenced. The dark red light in an instant flourished had already enveloped Ghost King's entire body, flickering indeterminately. Ghost King's figure could no longer be seen clearly, and Tao Tai also seemed to feel something. In the midst of astonishment, there was actually some fear. Involuntarily took a step back. An ancient-looking, slightly dilapidated ancient cauldron slowly rose up from the depths of the red light. Following the appearance of this ancient cauldron, the red light in the stone chamber was like blood. Not a single object was not dyed red, and that smell of blood became even more intense, nauseating. The fear in the Tao Tai's eyes deepened, but under the stimulation of this smell of blood, as if the ferocious nature hidden in its bones was also lured out. After a few moments of hesitation, it did not turn and run. Instead, with a loud roar, it again pounced towards that ancient cauldron. Far away, Ghostly frowned tightly. His body could not help but move, and then he forced himself to stop, his eyes staring intently at that ancient cauldron. Not so long ago, 10 years ago, at the East Sea Lubo Hill, he had seen this ancient celestial weapon before. Unexpectedly today, it seemed to have completely changed. The Tao Tai's enormous body pounced towards the hidden dragon cauldron, but when it was only 3 chi away from the cauldron, suddenly, a rumble was heard from the hidden dragon cauldron, as if a deep, mysterious incantation was muttering in the void, following which a red light shrouded the Tao Tai's entire body. The Tao Tai immediately trembled, its face in extreme pain, hauled to the sky, but as if its strength was sucked out, it fell down from the air. Ghost Li's countenance changed slightly. The hidden dragon cauldron's power was beyond his expectations, clearly incomparable to the past. Actually, the hidden dragon cauldron's power had already changed beyond recognition in these 10 years. Ghost King, with Mr. Ghost's help, comprehended the inscriptions on the cauldron, gathered the spiritual beast's divine power to activate the 4 divinities' blood formation. Right now, in the hidden dragon cauldron, it had already gathered the spiritual powers of the Kuei cow, yellow bird, and torch dragon, the 3 divine beasts. Although the Tao Tai was a strange beast, but compared to the other 3, it was definitely at a disadvantage. Moreover, this hidden dragon cauldron was an ancient celestial weapon. Itself had a strange power. The stronger the spiritual power of the divine beasts, the more powerful the 4 divinities' blood formation's evil power was. Once it faced the enemy, the Tao Tai was immediately suppressed. Right now, the red light flashed like a real entity, tightly shrouded the Tao Tai's huge body. The Tao Tai's body trembled in extreme pain, but it could not move. Even the roars from its mouth quickly became softer, leaving only panting sounds. In the stone chamber, the stench of blood became heavier. Ghost King looked at the Tao Tai who was crawling on the ground. Ecstasy flashed in his eyes. He suddenly laughed loudly to the sky, his appearance different from usual, like a madman. And at this strange moment, suddenly, angry cries, the Taotai, who was tightly bound by the red light, also struggled to turn its head to look. It was Xiao Hui. It resolutely leapt into the air and landed beside the Taotai, stretched out its hand, wanting to help, but the red light looked like it was an illusory radiance. When Xiao Hui stretched out its hand, it instead cried out and jumped away. It seemed like it had suffered a loss. Xiao Hui bared its teeth, looked extremely furious, bared its sharp teeth at Ghost King, making a provocative gesture. Ghost King did not know since when, under that glinting blood-like red light, both of his eyes had already turned blood red. Right now, he abruptly turned his head. Instantly, his murderous aura surged. Without further words, a gush of black energy abruptly soared, pounced out from the red light, striking towards Xiao Hui. Naturally, Xiao Hui was also not easy to deal with. The useless monkey, although furious, but it could also see the ferocious light trembling in that black energy, refused to take it head-on, leapt to the side a few times, and evaded. Missing, Ghost King with a long cry. The black energy's speed instantly doubled. At the same time, it seemed to split into several streams. Streams of black energy like lightning, struck down from all directions. The little ghost used both its hands and feet, dodged left and right, barely managed to evade by a hair's breadth, but it was already in a precarious situation. A few times it was almost hit by the black energy. And Ghost King right now, for some reason, facing such a monkey, did not have the slightest intention of showing mercy. In the black energy, suddenly another low cry was heard. The wind and clouds howled and gathered, condensing into a blood-red palm. Struck down from above, Xiao Hui had already been forced to stagger left and right by the black energy. Right now it had no way to retreat. Looked like it was about to be hit by this blood-red palm. Chapter 412. And at this critical juncture, suddenly an arm stretched out from the side, passed through the piercingly cold, murderous black bloodlight, grabbed the monkey's tail, and pulled outwards. Xiao Hui's body immediately flew up, flew backwards, and the vicious black energy blocking its back, unknowingly dispersed. Xiao Hui flew out unscathed. Escaped, but Ghost King, who was hiding in the depths of the red light, seemed to make an angry roar. The murderous aura became even stronger. The surrounding black energy and red light instantly solidified. A huge red palm print slapped down towards this arm that suddenly appeared. And after the red light, the hidden dragon cauldron slowly started to rotate. Strange light flowed inside the cauldron. Strange incantations faintly discernible. A murderous intent. The red light dazzled. In a flash, Ghost Li's figure appeared. It was him who had saved Xiao Hui's life at the critical moment. At the same time, he also turned to face Ghost King. For some reason, the hidden dragon cauldron's strange demonic power had not stopped since it started. The whistling sounds became more and more desolate. The red palm print indistinctly glimmered. Ancient cauldron-shaped strange incantations pounced over. Ghostly frowned tightly, but facing this exceptional evil skill, he had no intention of retreating. Both his arms waved up before the red palm print, which was as fast as lightning arrived. In the empty space before him, he drew out a Taiji diagram. The green light suddenly rose, like a clear spring pouring into the dry soil. The murderous aura in the room actually shook. The Taiji diagram shrouded with clear energy. It was the orthodox pure Qing Yun sect. Remarkable skill. Tai Chi Xian Qing Wei. The red seal, the next moment with a loud rumble, crashed onto the Taiji diagram. Unexpectedly, there was no earth-shattering, deafening sound and commotion. On the contrary, like a clay ox entering a quagmire, there was not the slightest sound, just that the red seal stopped in the air, unable to advance another step, and Ghost Li's face instantly turned red, as if blood was about to drip out. Ghost Li's eyes glinted sharply, looked deeply into that red light. With a cold snort, his feet moved, retreating. Every step he retreated, that red blood mark pressed forward a little. At the same time, every step he retreated, his palms did not stop for a moment. His fingers bent and rose. The seal changed. The Taiji diagram between his hands shone with clear light, but did not weaken at all. When he retreated to the third step, his hands formed the precious vase seal. The unusual red expression on his face had already eased. The edge of the Taiji diagram had already started to emit faint golden light. When he retreated to the fifth step, his hands formed the grasping flower seal. The Taiji diagram's golden light and green air interweaved and reflected. And when he retreated to the seventh step, Ghostly's back was already against the stone wall. There was no more way to retreat. But right now, Ghostly's face had already reverted back to normal, without the unusual red. Both of his hands shook. Ghostly had already formed a Buddhist Vajra seal. In an instant, golden light flourished, and a solemn image shot out in all directions. It was as if there were deities and Buddhas softly chanting sutras around them, deep and pleasing to the ears. The Taiji diagram spun rapidly, and golden light shone brilliantly. The red blood seal was gradually swallowed up by the Taiji diagram and disappeared. The dazzling golden-green light filled the sky, charged straight up, and actually suppressed Ghost King's red light. And in the depths of the red light, an angry roar was heard. Evidently that person was enraged. The red light swayed. A few wails were heard. The Tao-Tai on the ground was sucked in by the red light. Its huge body was actually sucked into the hidden dragon cauldron, and in a blink disappeared. And Ghost King's face was gradually revealed in the red light. His white hair danced in the air, both of his eyes red, murderous, whereas the usual composed look, almost like a murderous demon. And Ghostly did not have the slightest fear, instead striding forward. The hidden dragon cauldron spun nonstop. The strange inscriptions on the cauldron flickered incessantly. Waves of red light. Ghost King raised his right hand. The huge ancient cauldron had already landed on his right hand, looking like a demon descending to earth, extremely terrifying. And Ghostly's body was glowing. Evidently, he had already gathered all his supernatural powers and was ready for the final battle. The two experts confronted each other. Murderous, this sudden battle. Both of them seemed to have long forgotten the reason. Just that right now, they seemed to have suddenly lost the rationality that they had suppressed in their hearts for many years, attacked with all their might, the demons in their hearts dancing wildly. Ghostly strode forward, nearer and nearer to Ghost King, and the baleful look in Ghost King's eyes became thicker. The hidden dragon cauldron slowly turned in the air, facing Ghostly. A great battle was about to break out. Who would have thought the two most important figures in the evil sect, in such a secluded stone chamber, inexplicably fell into a life and death battle? Boom! A loud sound was heard from the stone chamber. Ghost King and Ghostly, the two men, seemed to see each other's eyes twitching slightly, but in that moment of imminent peril, they actually did not move. The stone chamber door slowly collapsed. Outside the door, a figure slowly appeared, a figure whose entire body seemed to be trembling slightly. "Stop!" That delicate voice, with anger, puzzlement, and some panic, Yuji, who is also the evil sect's vermilion bird, stood at the door. It was impossible to see her facial expression under the black veil, but it was clear that she was filled with resentment. "What are you two doing? Are you both crazy?" In the stone chamber, silence. The two men confronted each other, also silent, did not speak. In the air, that murderous aura still lingered. Good. Yuji seemed to bite her lips, angrily spoke from between her teeth. She raised her hand, pointed to that direction. "All of you kill. All of you just die. Everything will be peaceful after you die. Do you all still remember that place? Her voice was a bit choked. "In that cold stone room, is there someone lying on the stone platform? Have all of you forgotten? Which one of you still remember Bai Yao? These two words." The red bloodlight quietly dispersed. The dazzling green and golden light gradually disappeared. The murderous aura and bloody stench in the stone chamber, unknowingly, like the tide, receded. Only silence, still lingering there, unwilling to leave. The two men stared at each other, deep in their eyes. There seemed to be an indescribable light colliding. Yuji hatefully stamped her feet, turned, and left without looking back. Looking at the direction she was heading, it should be the cold stone chamber where Bai Yao was at. And the two men, still lingering in the stone chamber, seemed to still be confronting each other, quietly spying on some secrets. After a long time, Ghost King suddenly indifferently snorted, his right hand waved, holding the hidden dragon cauldron in his hand, strided out of the room. When he walked past Ghostly, in his eyes, a sharp glint seemed to dazzle out. And Ghostly's eyes at that moment did not notice Ghost King, but on the hidden dragon cauldron. The unsophisticated ancient cauldron had many minute damages, but on the deep green with purple cauldron, many twisted, mysterious inscriptions could still be clearly seen, and on the back of the cauldron, in the middle of those inscriptions, there was a picture imprinted into Ghostly's eyes. The fire burned fiercely, and the fire was roasting a huge cauldron. Around the huge cauldron, for kinds of strange beasts, whether birds or beasts, howled to the sky, and above the huge cauldron, black clouds rolled. It was a hideous and terrifying Demon King's face, grinning hideously at the mortal world. This picture only flashed past Ghostly's eyes, but for some reason, it was already deeply imprinted in Ghostly's mind, unable to be erased. And in his impression, that Demon King's face was so familiar, just that at this moment, he could not recall whether he had seen this Demon King before. Ghost King very quickly walked out of the stone chamber, disappeared outside. The stone chamber resumed its peace. The monkey Xiao Hui jumped over from the side, leapt onto Ghostly's shoulder, slowly sat down, but there was not the slightest joy on its face. From time to time it turned to look at the door, its mouth making low sounds. Ghostly was silent, stretched out his hand, and gently stroked Xiao Hui's head. After a moment, he made a light sigh and then turned and walked out of the stone chamber, strolling. The long tunnel seemed to lead in all directions, just like the road of life. Nobody knew where to go, or it should be said, even if you thought you knew, in fact, that road, where would it lead to, who would know? An hour later, Ghostly stopped, stunned, speechless, realized that the place he stopped at was outside the cold stone chamber. The thick stone wall lay in front of him, but he suddenly felt afraid. Even when facing Ghost King's hidden dragon cauldron evil skills, he was not afraid. Right now he could not help but feel afraid. That stone door, quietly like that, stood erect in front of him, slightly trembling hand stretched over. The stone door, like countless times in the past, emitted a deep, rumbling sound, opened. At the first crack that opened, indistinctly, he saw a slender figure standing in front of the cold stone platform. In the air, there seemed to be a clear and familiar bell sound. He seemed to be dazed. Chapter 413. The white cold air, curling up like smoke, quietly drifted in the cold stone chamber. This day, the cold air in the cold stone chamber seemed to be much thicker than usual. Even looking over, there seemed to be a hazy feeling, not as clear as usual. The stone door emitted a deep rumble, slowly opened, just that slender figure, for some reason, seemed to be blurry. It was Yuji, right? Ghostly thought like this in his heart as he slowly walked in. In the cold stone chamber, the faint cold air drifted, threads, like a dream, shrouded his figure. That female figure, quietly with her back facing him, standing in front of the ice stone platform, and around her, the cold air seemed to be especially heavy. Even the white air condensed from the cold air was like frost and snow, indistinct. In the air, that indistinct clear bell sound reverberated, as if it was near his ears. For some reason, Ghostly subconsciously stopped. Maybe because of today's matter, he found it difficult to face Yuji, especially after Yuji loudly reprimanded and mentioned Bai Yao. Thinking back, although Ghostly was bewildered by Ghost King's unusual behavior today, but towards his own unhesitating counterattack, he could only remain silent. Perhaps, in the hearts of these two men, there was already hatred buried deep in their hearts. But there was still Bai Yao in this world, and she was lying in this cold stone chamber. Ghostly glanced at that indistinct figure hidden in the cold air, quietly lowered his head, after a long time said, "Just now I fought with Ghost King's sect leader. It was my fault. I also don't know how things suddenly turned out like this." "Don't be angry. I won't do it again. That figure's shoulder seemed to tremble but did not speak, still remained quiet, just that the surrounding cold air seemed to circulate faster. Even in this stone chamber, seemed to have turned colder. Just that this stone chamber had always been cold, Ghostly did not mind. He sighed, wanted to speak, but stopped. Yuji and Bai Yao's relationship, he naturally knew. After Bai Yao's mother passed away, Ghost King focused on Ghost King's sect affairs. Yuji more or less played the role of Bai Yao's mother. This could be seen from how Bai Yao had always addressed Yuji as Aunt Yu. Facing her now, especially in this cold stone chamber, Ghostly felt that he was really facing Bai Yao, and his guilt towards Bai Yao was deep. Today he even fought with Ghost King, almost deciding life and death. It was even more difficult to express. After a long time, he heaved a long sigh, quietly said, I know you are worried about Bai Yao and do not wish to see me and her father fighting again. Actually, I did not have such intention, just that at that time. He frowned. Ghost King's unusual expression again flashed past his mind, shook his head and said, Anyway, I promise you, in the future I will give in to him for Bai Yao's sake. That slender figure seemed to move again, but she still did not turn around. However, looking at her back, it seemed that she was silently nodding her head in approval. Ghostly was silent. After a moment, he heaved a long sigh, did not wish to speak anymore, slightly turned around, wanted to walk towards that stone platform, to take a good look at Bai Yao. Just that when he was about to step out, suddenly his entire body froze in that instant, like a spark. A thought flashed past his mind, like thunder in his mind, rumbled. Yuji's face veil, which never left her body. Why from the back? He could not see this figure. Almost at the same time, Ghostly's chaotic mind immediately recalled. This figure's beautiful hairstyle was a young lady's, totally different from Yuji's bun. He like lightning turned around, loudly shouted, Who are you? The cold air in the cold stone chamber instantly chilled to the bone. The light smoke which shrouded that figure in that instant started to spin rapidly. Ghostly's eyes were wide open. There was actually an outsider who invaded this cold stone chamber. To him, this was absolutely unacceptable. Just as Ghostly was about to make a move, suddenly a low rumbling sound came from behind him. Ghostly was bewildered and turned his head to look, only to see that the stone door that was originally closed behind him slowly opened again, and a figure appeared at the doorway. Tall and slender, black veil covering her face, a serene aura. If it was not Yuji, who could it be? Yuji opened the stone door and suddenly saw Ghost Lee's strange expression, both eyes wide open, his facial muscles twisted. Instead, she was startled and couldn't help but step back, but she was after all not an ordinary person. Immediately calmed down, coldly said, Humph, you still have the face to come here to see Bai Yao? Ghostly stared deeply at her. Suddenly his expression changed, as if he recalled something important, quickly turned and looked. Just that with this look, his entire body shook like he was stunned, stood there in a daze, unable to make a sound. The huge cold stone chamber, the place where he was at, suddenly completely recovered its original appearance. The strange white smoke disappeared, the indistinct bell sounds disappeared. As for that mysterious figure, in that instant disappeared into thin air. Everything seemed like it was the same as before, like a dream, an illusion, drifted past, drifted away. Bai Yao quietly laid on the stone platform. Her lips still had that familiar smile, her hands clasped together. The Hehuan bell glimmered incessantly, gently moving, as if watching Ghostly. Ghostly stood there, his body tense, as if he had lost all senses, motionless. Yuji, who slowly walked into the cold stone chamber, soon discovered something was wrong with Ghostly, glanced at him, frowned and said, What are you doing? Ghostly's lips moved, but did not speak. He only silently looked up, blankly assessed this cold stone chamber. Other than that heavy stone door, the stone chamber was surrounded by solid stone walls, without a single crack. Just that looking at it now, those cold stone walls seemed to carry some cruel mockery, coldly staring at this ridiculous person. The drifting gaze slowly turned back to the cold stone chamber, to the person lying on the stone platform. Ghostly's eyes, for some reason, turned blurry. Thousands of thoughts, like tide, surged in. That gaze finally quietly landed on Bai Yao's hair. "What happened to you?" Yuji's voice already had some impatience. Ghostly closed his eyes, after a long time slowly opened them, quietly said, "When you came in, did you notice anything strange in this stone chamber?" Yuji humphed, coldly said, "What is strange? Isn't it still the same as before, one platform and one person?" The muscles at the corner of Ghost Li's eyes seemed to twitch. Yuji slowly sat down beside Bai Yao, her eyes revealing a tender and pained expression. After watching for a long time, she slowly said, "I know you are actually not living well too. Just that I hope you can think more. If Bai Yao knew that you actually fought with her father, how would she feel?" Ghostly was stunned and did not speak. After a moment, suddenly shook his head, took a long breath, said, "Don't worry, I know what to do." After speaking, he looked deeply at Bai Yao again and then turned and strode out. Watching his back figure, Yuji frowned slightly. Instinctively felt that Ghostly seemed to be different from usual, but then she heaved a long sigh. He was not the only one who was different. Now even Ghost King Sect Head, whom she had followed for so many years, wasn't he more and more incomprehensible to her? She quietly lowered her head, sank into deep thoughts. The cold stone chamber was quiet, only the Hehuan bell in Bai Yao's hand, the flowing light flickering like a clear eye, flickering incessantly, watching this world. Qing Yin Hill, small bamboo valley. Early morning, a cool breeze blew past. The verdant bamboo forests swayed together, the rustling of the bamboo leaves, like the sounds of nature, calming one's mind. The heavy rain last night, as if it had washed heaven and earth, the fresh air brushed past, the distant mountains were dyed black, the landscape like a painting. The stone path beneath her feet was still wet. Occasionally in the cracks of the stones, there was some accumulated rainwater from last night. On the stone path and both sides, many bamboo leaves fell, most likely blown down by last night's storm. The hour was still early. No one had come to clean yet. Her clothes were as white as snow, delicate and pretty. Lu Sueki walked alone in this bamboo forest path. In the faint morning breeze, her hair softly draped over her shoulders, her delicate skin, snow white, but with a faint trace of pink, like in a deep mountain valley, quietly blooming beautiful flowers. Chapter 414. On both sides of the stone path, the tall bamboo swayed slightly. On the green bamboo leaves, there was still condensed dew, quietly gliding past, quietly flying to the ground. She stepped forward, never looking back, her white clothes fluttering, walked into the depths of the green bamboo forest. The stone path was deep and winding. The morning light penetrated through the gaps in the dense bamboo forest. The bamboo shadows swayed, illuminating her graceful figure. A simple bamboo house ahead gradually appeared. It was the place where small bamboo valley head Shueiyuan master usually meditated and cultivated. Lu Sueki walked to the house, stopped at the door, hesitated for a moment, stretched out her hand, and lightly patted the bamboo door. "Teacher, disciple Sueki greets." "Come in." Shueiyuan master's voice was heard from the house. No joy nor sorrow, seemed to carry the slightest emotion, indifferent like water. The door creaked and was gently pushed open by Lu Sueki. Lu Sueki walked in and immediately saw his master sitting cross-legged on the bamboo bed. His eyes were closed and his expression was peaceful. He did not seem to have changed his expression because of his arrival. Lu Sueki quietly walked to Shueiyuan master, knelt down, quietly said, "Teacher, disciple is here." She paused and continued, "Sueki, no, I am unfilial, failed to live up to your expectations, made teacher sad. Please punish me." Shueiyuan master slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes landed on Lu Sueki after a long time, sighed, and said, "If I punish you, will you change your mind?" Lu Sueki silently bowed her head, did not dare to look at her teacher's face, did not say a word, just looking at her expression, where was the slightest hint of regret. Shueiyuan master shook her head, smiled bitterly, and said, "Since you have already steeled your heart and refused to turn back, what is the use of me punishing you? Forget it, forget it. You get up." Lu Sueki bit her lips, seemed agitated but still controlled herself, stood up. Shueisha Master gently patted the bamboo couch beside her, said, "You also sit." Lu Sueki shook her head, said, "Disciple does not dare." Shueisha Master glanced at her, said, "There are only two of us here. What is there to fuss about? Unless in your heart you still bear a grudge against me as your teacher, and are estranged from me." Lu Sueki looked up abruptly and hurriedly shook his head. Master, Master." Shueisha waved her hand and smiled. All right. I raised you up and taught you what kind of character you are. Do you think I don't know?" She stretched out her hand and held Lu Sueki's hand, gently pulled her to sit beside her, carefully looked at Lu Sueki's beautiful and elegant face, sighed and said, "No matter what, as your teacher, I am after all doing this for your own good. You must remember." The corner of Lu Sueki's mouth twitched, and he said in a low voice, "I understand. It's all my fault." Master Shueisha shook her head and said, "Forget it. Now that things have come to this, let's not argue who is right and who is wrong. Ask the world, what is love? Thousands of snowy mountains. In these thousands of mountains and rivers, who could really accompany him for a lifetime?" Speaking till here, it was as if Shueisha Master herself also touched upon her thoughts for a moment in a daze. Lu Sueki did not dare to disturb her teacher, only felt her teacher holding her hand. The warmth from her palm was a long-lost familiarity. After a long time, Shueisha Master suddenly shook, woke up from her daze, smiled bitterly, seemed to be self-deprecating, and then said to Lu Sueki, "AI, we will talk about these things later. Last night, I asked Wenmin to call you over. Did she tell you everything?" Lu Sueki shook her head, said, "Senior sister did not say. Only told me to look for teacher in the morning. Said if there is anything, teacher, you will tell me yourself." Shueisha Master silently nodded, said, "That's right. Wenmin, that girl, although knows a little, but after all not much, let me tell you." Lu Sueki was slightly shocked, looked at Shueisha Master's solemn face, as if there was something difficult in her heart, couldn't help but said, "Teacher, what is it? If there is anything you need disciple to do, just tell me. Disciple will definitely do my best to do it." Shueisha Master nodded, smiled, and said, "Of course I believe you, just that there is indeed a big matter, but concerns our Qing Yun sect's fate, but we cannot let too many outsiders, including our sect disciples, know about it. I have thought about it. Only you are the best among our sect disciples, so I called you over." Lu Sueki raised her brows, slightly surprised, said, "Teacher, don't tell me something big happened in our sect?" Shueisha Master smiled bitterly, said, "Who says not?" Lu Sueki said, "What happened, teacher?" Shueisha Master hesitated for a moment, seemed to be deliberating, then slowly said, "Your sect head teacher uncle and Big Bamboo Valley Tian Bui Tian teacher uncle disappeared together a few days ago." Lu Sueki's body shook, said, "It disappeared together?" Shueisha Master lightly said, "That day, there was once a senior sect disciple who saw Tian Bui arriving at Tongtian Peak and went straight to Founder's Ancestral Hall at the back of the mountain. These days, everyone knew sect head senior brother was almost always in Founder's Ancestral Hall, and from then on, no one had seen them again." Lu Sueki frowned tightly, clearly very shocked. Shueisha Master paused for a moment and said, "After this happened, because the implications were too great, now Tongtian Peak's Xiao Yikai did not dare to cover it up, but no matter what, he did not dare to announce it, only secretly informed our branch leaders. After that, I also went to Founder's Ancestral Hall to check, but did not expect that there was already—" Lu Sueki was surprised, said, "What happened to Founder's Ancestral Hall?" Shueisha Master shook her head, said, "Ancestral Hall was almost destroyed. One look, and one can see that it was destroyed by the intense fight." "What?" Lu Sueki cried out involuntarily. Shueisha Master coldly laughed, said, "Founder's Ancestral Hall is where Qing Yun sect worships generations of ancestors. The two of them dared to fight in such a solemn place, really lawless. And there was an even more serious matter." Lu Sueki was shocked and shocked again. She really could not think of anything more serious than destroying Founder's Ancestral Hall. Could not help but ask, "What else is there?" "Yesterday, Xiao Yikai hurriedly ran over to me." Shueisha Master's face turned solemn, her eyes even more worried. unhurriedly said, according to what he said, ever since Daoxian's senior brother disappeared, he tried his best to investigate, but to no avail, so he wanted to check his teacher's remains, to see if there were any discoveries. Unexpectedly this search, he discovered a major matter. Lu Sueki stared at Shueihua Master. Shueihua Master closed her eyes, as if tired, said, Xiao Yikai discovered, our sect's Zhuxian ancient sword is also missing. Lu Sueki was stunned, speechless. Shueihua Master opened her eyes, said, I know you are an intelligent person, naturally know the implications and profoundness. Although Zhuxian ancient sword is already destroyed, but the implications are too great, and most outsiders do not know about the sword destruction. If it is spread out, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome. And speaking of Zhuxian ancient sword, there is actually a huge secret, even more important. Only our Qingyun sect head and few others know about it. If it is leaked out, the consequences would be unthinkable. Lu Sueki was shocked. Zhuxian sword, other than being our sect's divine weapon. Don't tell me there is another secret? Shueihua Master was silent. For a long time did not speak. Lu Sueki also did not dare to speak, stood aside, after a long while quietly said, Disciple is rude. I have lost my composure, just now. Shueihua Master silently shook her head. After a long while said, Teacher does not mean to blame you, just that the implications are too great. The sequence of events is also extremely complicated. Speaking till here, she paused for a while, seemed to be contemplating, after a moment said, Actually, according to logic, even I, as the head of Small Bamboo Valley, should not know about it. Just that 100 years ago, that chaos, the few of us accidentally found out 1 or 2 insider information. Lu Sueki was stunned, said, The few of us, could it be that this huge secret, other than Teacher you, there are others who know about it? Shueihua Master indifferently said, In that chaos, counting the people who participated, there should be 5 other than me. There's still Daoxian's senior brother, Tianbui, Su junior sister. Lu Sueki was listening. Suddenly Shueihua Master stopped, silently calculating in her heart, could not help but said, Teacher, there are only 4 people here. Who is the other one? Shueihua Master sighed. A faint melancholy flashed past her face, said, It is your teacher uncle, called Wan Jian Yi. Chapter 415. 100 years ago, the evil sect was rampant, its power was strong. The Tao was weak, and the evil was strong. The group of evil was arrogant, wanted to wipe out the good faction, and invaded Qingyun. After a series of tragic battles, finally the seniors and the rest fought with all their might. At the foot of Qingyun Hill, invited the Zhuxian ancient sword, activated the Zhuxian sword formation, and finally turned defeat into victory. Shueihua Master's tone was calm. Lu Sueki's face changed slightly. Just from that phrase of tragic battles, one could imagine the intense and cruel battle situation. However, Shueihua Master did not seem to be interested in this. Quickly continued. After this battle, although the evil sect was heavily injured, but our Qingyun branch also suffered a great loss. Many of our highly skilled senior ancestors were either dead or injured. We did not have the strength to pursue relentlessly. Just that at this time, there was a senior brother who stood out, volunteered bravely, with lofty sentiments, wanted to eradicate the evil completely, pursue and kill the evil. Sect remnants. Lu Sueki was moved, said, This teacher uncle, is it Wan Jian teacher uncle? Shueihua Master slowly closed her eyes. Her tone also slowly became erratic. It is him. AI, the scene at that time. Until now, I still remember vividly. In that fierce battle, he had already made great contributions, killed numerous enemies. His white clothes were all dyed red. He stood in front of the various teachers, his expression impassioned. Just a few words only made us young junior brothers and sisters blood boiling. After that, other than Daoxian's senior brother as a senior disciple, who stayed behind to guard Qingyun, me, Suru junior sister, Tianbui, Zhang Shuchang, Shang Zhengliang, Tianyin, Song Song, and the rest of the branch leaders all followed him. From then on we traversed the world, went to the wildlands. Along the way we encountered bloodshed, swords and blades, but we never cowered. Shueihua Master's eyes were still closed, her expression so focused. As if in front of her, that period of hot-blooded youth again appeared, even her cheeks slightly flushed. In the small house, no one spoke for a moment, but the atmosphere seemed to be restless, like a surging torrent under the calm, silently swept past. After a long time, Shui Master suddenly laughed bitterly, shook her head, her voice turned sorrowful, said, "Forget it. These old matters are all in the past." That year, our group of people went through a calamity and heavily injured the remnants of the evil sect. Only then did we return to Qingyan. But at that moment, we were unintentionally dragged into a secret of our sect. After returning to Qingyun, Suru Jr.'s sister and Tianbui developed feeling for each other over time, but I really did not like this person. One night, the two of them sneaked out again without telling your teacher ancestor Junior Master. After being discovered by me, worried that Junior's sister would be at a disadvantage and also unwilling to report them. If not, your teacher ancestor would be angry. Suru Jr.'s sister would have to suffer, so I followed them all the way. When Lu Sweki heard this, she was surprised and couldn't help but find it funny, but she dared not show it on her face. Fortunately, Shuiwa Master seemed to know and did not pause too much and continued. Who knew that both of them were young and daring. In order to avoid people's eyes and ears, they actually agreed to sneak to Tongtian Peak's rear mountain, ran to the inaccessible founder's ancestral hall for a rendezvous. Lu Sweki was stunned again. After a long while she quietly lowered her head, Big Bamboo Valley head Tian Bai's appearance floated before her eyes. She thought to herself that the world is full of phenomena. Indeed, a person cannot be judged by his appearance. Shui Wen Master's face was displeased, snorted, and said, "I looked at them like that. I was really infuriated and so appeared, shouted at them to stop." Su Junior's sister and Tian Bui were naturally startled. After seeing that it was only me, Su Junior's sister came over with a mischievous smile and pulled me. Tian Bui, that fellow, still did not give me a good look in my anger. I was about to flare up. Lu Sweki thought to herself, if Tian Bui, teacher, uncle, right now, still had a good look on his face, or even a smiling face, that would be strange. Shuewa Master suddenly paused, couldn't help but asked, "What happened next?" Shuewa Master was silent for a moment, said, and at this moment, suddenly from the originally desolate and dark founder's ancestral hall, a strange howl was heard. This sound like a wild beast's roar, filled with pain, almost not like a human's voice. The three of us were shocked, subconsciously hid in the dense shadows of the forest. The next moment, we saw that secret. Lu Sweki stared intently at Shuiwa Master, but saw a faint pained expression on her face. It seemed that this secret in her heart had really been tormented for many years. Even until now, the edges and corners did not seem to have worn off much. Shuiwa Master's deep voice sounded somewhat hollow, just that each and every word was like a sudden clap of thunder, slowly uncovering the once dust-laden past. A figure stumbled out of the founder's ancestral hall, his clothes tattered, hair disheveled, covering his face, unable to see his face clearly, and he looked like a lunatic. At the same time, his mouth kept on roaring, sometimes groaning in pain, but we couldn't understand what he was saying. The three of us were shocked and afraid. Founder's ancestral hall, such an important place. How could such a lunatic appear? But we couldn't just let him fool around like that. When the three of us were about to go out and stop this madman, suddenly two figures swept out from Founder's ancestral hall, landed in front of that madman, uniformly knelt down. That night the moonlight was bright and clear. The three of us saw clearly. These two people were the two senior brothers whom we, the younger generation, usually highly respected, Daoxian senior brother and Wan Jinni senior brother. Lu Sweki exclaimed, "What?" Shuiwa Master glanced at her, indifferently said, "You are also shocked, right?" The three of us at that time. Our shock was even more than yours. We were all stunned. What happened next was even more inconceivable. Daoxian senior brother and Wan senior brother, their faces full of grief, actually knelt on the ground, one on each side, each hugging one of that madman's legs, tightly not letting go, their voices pleading earnestly, their mouths calling out. Was teacher two words? Lu Sweki this time was already so shocked that she couldn't even make a sound. Shuiwa Master looked over, seemed to be completely immersed in the past. Her voice deep, said, Being called out by them, besides being shocked, we then discovered that lunatic's figure and appearance. It was actually Qin Yun's sect head reverend, these two senior brothers' teacher. Not long ago in the Good and Evil War, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. We only saw that this sect head teacher uncle did not have any of his usual dignified demeanor. His mouth was babbling nonsense. Seemed to be cursing something, but we couldn't hear clearly, and the two senior brothers looked extremely sorrowful, tears streaming down their faces, tightly hugging sect head teacher uncle's legs, begging, saying, teacher, wake up, these words. But sect head teacher uncle, for some reason, with his level of cultivation, his mind was in a mess. He turned a deaf ear to the pleas of his two most proud disciples. In the end, instead he turned his head, both his eyes flashing with a fierce glint, staring at the two of them, with a loud roar, actually made a killing move, both palms striking down. When Lu Sueki heard this, as if she was there, couldn't help but trembled. Shuiwa Master said, at that time the three of us were watching from the side, already lost our composure. Now that we saw sect head teacher uncle suddenly turned hostile, attacked the two senior brothers, we were even more at a loss. Who knew when the two of them were about to lose their lives under Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's palms? Suddenly, Daoxian senior brother hugged sect head teacher uncle's legs and spun. His entire body swiftly spun to Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's back. Like lightning, he had already grabbed Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's arms. At the same time, his body shone with bright light, firmly restraining Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. Wan senior brother didn't seem to expect Daoxian senior brother to do this, was stunned. Unexpectedly, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle, although in a frenzy, but his skills were still there. Both his hands being held by Daoxian senior brother, he instead kicked out. Immediately, Wan senior brother flew out. Wan senior brother flew out for about 2 zhongs. A mouthful of blood spurted out. The scene changed violently. The three of us were dumbfounded, staring blankly, totally not knowing what to do. Daoxian senior brother was heard shouting, Wan junior brother, why aren't you moving? Wan senior brother heard it, clearly trembled all over, but still did not move, both eyes staring at his teacher and Daoxian senior brother. Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was highly skilled, fought back with all his might. Daoxian senior brother, although both his hands were still holding his teacher's body, but in just a short while his face was flushed red. He had already spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. At the same time, the green light on his body quickly dimmed. Obviously, his skills at that time was still a distance away from Tian Qingzi teacher uncle. And at this moment, it looked like Daoxian senior brother could not hold on any longer. Suddenly, a white figure floated past. It was Wan senior brother. The three of us stared blankly, helplessly watched. Wan senior brother, with a wild roar, pounced over from afar. After a sharp whistle, his dragon slayer sword was already in his hand, pierced into Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's chest. In the small house, a deathly silence, like that desolate night. The silence after the tragedy, after the surging murderous intent, the remnant pain, returned to silence. Lu Sueki's face was pale. After a long time, quietly said, the sect records Tian Qingzi teacher uncle 100 years ago, in front of the past generations of ancestors' memorial tablets in Founder's Ancestral Hall, passed on the position to Daoxian teacher uncle. Shuiwen Master laughed bitterly, shook her head, her voice low and deep, said, seeing this tragic event in the sect, and the two people who killed our teachers were the two senior brothers that we usually respected the most, me, Su, junior sister, and Tian Bui. The three of us all completely lost our minds, at a loss of what to do. Even Su, junior sister, in her agitation, accidentally made a little noise. But maybe the two of them had just killed their teachers. Their emotions were also too agitated. They did not notice us here. And it was also the two of them, after looking at each other for a long time, slowly knelt before Tian Qingzi teacher uncle's body, had a conversation. From their conversation, the three of us then knew the root cause of this tragedy. What was it? It turned out that in our sect, the supreme celestial weapon Zhu Xian ancient sword passed down by Qin Yi founder actually had a huge secret, that although this celestial sword killed all evil, but maybe because it had killed too many after a long period of time, this sword itself actually had a strange demonic nature. Once the person wielding the sword stimulated all the spiritual power of the sword. He would suffer the sword's demonic spirit's backlash, gradually controlling his mind, becoming cruel and murderous. Even if it was someone with higher cultivation, he would not be able to resist it. Ever since Master Qing Yi left his instructions, Qing Yun's sect's successive generations of sect masters all knew this secret, so they tried their best not to use this divine sword. And Tian Qingzi teacher uncle, due to the urgency of the good and evil war, had no choice but to use this sword to activate the Zhu Xian sword formation. After that, although he immediately sealed this sword and focused on cultivation, but he still could not escape this calamity. When Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was still conscious, he secretly told this secret to his two most proud disciples, Daoxian senior brother and Wan Jinyi senior brother. Firstly, he had always trusted these two the most. Secondly, if he only told one person, in case something happened, Tian Qingzi teacher uncle was afraid that his skills were too high. One of them would not be able to control him. In the end, it turned out to be like this. Lu Sueki heard this, suddenly shocked, abruptly looked up, hurriedly said, "Teacher, that now the current Daoxian sect head teacher uncle he, could it be that he also?" Shuiwen master heaved a long sigh, silently nodded. Lu Sueki was stunned, speechless. Shuiwen master was silent for a long time, faintly said, "Within 10 years, Daoxian senior brother had used the Zhu Xian ancient sword twice, especially in this demon beast catastrophe. He had even opened all the heaven seals of Qing Yun Hill's 7 peaks, forced the Zhu Xian sword formation's power to the extreme. Such evil spirit backlash power, one can imagine. Actually, I'd already thought of it. Just that 10 years ago, Daoxian senior brother had already used the Zhu Xian ancient sword once, but he was not affected by the evil spirit backlash power. I was feeling lucky, thought that his skills were high, and this time he could still survive the calamity. Unfortunately, Heaven's will, heaven's will." Lu Sueki was silent for a moment, said, "Teacher, such a big secret. Why did you tell disciple, unless there is something important to instruct disciple?" Shuiwen master's face turned solemn, looked at Lu Sueki, said, "Exactly." Lu Sueki lowered her head slightly, said, "Teacher's kindness is deep. Disciple cannot repay it, even if I die 9 times, whatever it is, please instruct me." Shuiwen master looked deeply at Lu Sueki, said, "Originally this secret, only Qing Yun's sect head knows, but I have been observing Xiao Yikai these few days, clearly did not know, and as such, in this world, among the people who still know this secret, Tian Bui has already mysteriously disappeared with Daoxian senior brother. Su junior sister and Tian Bui had always been husband and wife. Right now, she must be in a mess. So whatever it is, only I can make the decision." Lu Sueki looked up at Shuiwen master, hesitated for a moment, said, "Teacher, what do you mean?" Shuiwen master said, "Although Daoxian senior brother and Tian Bui are missing, but nobody knows where exactly they have gone. If they have left Qingyun Hill, so I must stay on the hill, in case they both appear. I can also make a decision according to the situation. But at the same time, we must also send people down the hill to search, among my sect disciples, those with strong will and skills. No one can be compared to you. This heavy responsibility, I can only pass it to you." Lu Sueki's face solemn, slowly knelt down in front of Shuiwen master. Just as she was after all an intelligent person, how could she not understand the implications? After a moment, she quietly said, "Teacher's orders, disciple will obey." Just that disciple does not know if disciple is to go down the hill to search for the 2 teachers. Teacher can just instruct. Why must disciple be told this secret? Towards the end, Lu Sueki's voice trembled slightly. Shuiwen master's face was ashen. The muscles at the corners of her eyes seemed to be twitching. After a long silence, she slowly said, "Tian Bui took the initiative to see Daoxian senior brother. Obviously, he knew this secret and saw that Daoxian senior brother had been bitten by the evil spirit. Between the 2 of them, there must be a fierce battle. After you go down the hill, try your best to search for their whereabouts, if you can find them, and at the same time discover that they are really fighting." Shuiwen master's palm slowly clenched into a fist. "You will find an opportunity. Kill that person who is controlled by the evil spirit." Lu Sueki's face was as pale as paper, but in the end she did not say anything, only slowly lowered her head. After a long, long time, in the deathly silence of the small house, her almost inaudible voice was heard. Yes, you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.